Chapter 13. The sun shone through the trees, leaving mottled shadows on the ground. A hand pushed aside the bushes, revealing a haggard face. Han Xiao had been on the run for 7 days. He had spent 7 days living in the jungle, eating military rations and water. All that was left in his backpack was a pile of equipment from the Night Owl Squad. At the cost of the destruction of his lightweight mechanical arm, he managed to block Silver Knife's dagger. What happened next was logical. Even if he only had a sliver of HP left, he could still beat Silver Knife, who was not good at close combat. How could Flying Dragon Rider lose? Even Poison Healer himself would not lose. Anyway, he had the blueprint, and as long as he had the materials, he could rebuild the equipment. It was too common for mechanics to damage their equipment in battle. The medical conditions in the jungle were poor. Fortunately, his endurance was high enough, so he did not have to worry about the wound getting infected. He endured the pain and dug out the bullet, and the wound would slowly heal. The wound caused by the sniper rifle was a little troublesome. The bullet was stuck in the gap between his shoulder blades. In order to dig out the bullet, Han Xiao was in so much pain that it took him half an hour to recover. The scene of Second Old Man scraping off bones to treat his wounds and watching spring and autumn did not suit Han Xiao at all. Along the way, with the blessing of Lady Luck, he did not encounter any ferocious beasts. The few long-eared rabbits he encountered all ended up in his stomach. The beasts in Blue Star were very ferocious, and there were even some intelligent beasts. In history, they had attacked cities many times. Some of the stronger beasts, such as the amphibious whale elephant, were dozens of meters in length, width, and height. They could even destroy a city on their own. Although Han Xiao remembered the map of Blue Star, he did not know where he was. He could only learn from Quafu and run in the direction of the rising sun. At night, he would sleep on the tree. He would be woken up by insects 7 or 8 times in a night, more often than at night. He deeply understood that mosquitoes were the most annoying creatures in the world. When can I get out of this forest? Han Xiao was panting. At this time, a camp appeared in the distance. Wood, cement, and scrap metal formed a strangely shaped fence and spikes. This was a simple defensive measure. There were dozens of felt tents in the camp, and wisps of smoke rose from them. This was clearly a very common wanderer settlement in Blue Star. Han Xiao was overjoyed. He was in desperate need of supplies. After walking a few dozen meters forward, Han Xiao's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly retreated. The dust on the ground in front of him surged, and suddenly a thick rope net rose up. Thin metal pieces were tied to the net. This was a dangerous knife net trap. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, otherwise there would be a pile of holes on his body. This guy actually dodged it. A long-haired young man walked out from behind the tree. He was wearing a rogue outfit made of various animal skins. He looked at Han Xiao maliciously and pointed a shotgun at Han Xiao's head. He said arrogantly, "Stop. Don't move." The young man was obviously a resident of the settlement. Han Xiao did not want to cause any conflict, so he raised his hands. "I'm just a passerby." "A passerby?" The long-haired youth noticed Han Xiao's bulging bag. His eyes were filled with greed. "What do you have in your bag? Take them all out." Seeing this, Han Xiao sighed inwardly. He had probably been robbed. No wonder the knife net trap was about the size of a human body. It was used to catch people. In times of chaos, human lives were cheap. Most rogues were people who refused to join the Six Nations. The harsh environment in the wilderness had cultivated their greedy hyena-like nature. It was common for them to kill people to steal resources. "Are you deaf? Take them out," the long-haired youth scolded as he approached. He pointed the shotgun at Han Xiao's forehead. His bag was full of guns and ammunition, and they were all standard equipment of the Germinal organization. How could he show them? Han Xiao was indifferent. "Don't you understand what I said? Do you believe that I won't CK you over in one shot?" The long-haired youth pulled the bolt of the gun fiercely. At this moment, Han Shao moved. He was as fast as lightning, and he raised his elbow and struck the long-haired youth in the chest. The long-haired youth screamed and flew backward. Han Shao used his other hand to snatch the shotgun from the long-haired youth. I've met a tough nut. The long-haired youth clutched his chest and panicked. He crawled backward on all fours, wanting to get as far away from this vicious person as possible. Han Shao untied the knife net trap, pulled out a thick rope, and tied the long-haired young man to the tree. He then picked up the shotgun and sized it up. The gun was crudely made, and the barrel was crooked. It would explode with a single shot. Using such a thing to rob people was purely idiotic. However, this also proved that this young man had never killed anyone before. He was just bluffing. Seeing Han Shao pick up the gun, the long-haired youth panicked and begged for mercy. Big brother, I was blind. Please forgive me. Han Shao slapped him on the head and yelled, "Now you know you're wrong?" The long-haired youth did not have any backbone. He hurriedly said, I was wrong. What was wrong? The long-haired youth hesitated for a moment before carefully asking, should I have brought an extra gun? Han Shao was so angry that he laughed. You're quite King naughty. Please be magnanimous and let me go like a fart. The long-haired youth cried. CK off, I don't have a fart as big as yours. Han Shao raised the gun and knocked the long-haired youth unconscious. He shook his head helplessly. This person was a resident of the settlement. He still needed to enter the settlement to buy food and water. He did not want to cause more trouble by killing people, so he could only tie him up and knock him unconscious. Count yourself lucky, Han Shao muttered. After trekking for half an hour, Han Shao finally entered the settlement. The residents here looked at him with vigilance. The wilderness was dangerous, and the wilderness wanderers were xenophobic. Although outsiders were rare, it was not unprecedented. Therefore, Han Shao was not surrounded like a monkey in a zoo. The lifestyle of the wilderness wanderers was similar to that of the gypsies, and they often migrated. Beside each tent, there was a small pickup truck covered with a dustproof cloth. These pickup trucks were basically modified vehicles, and they were covered with rust. Some of them did not even have shells installed, and their skeletons were exposed to the air. Each pickup truck represented a family. This settlement was not big, with only a few dozen families. However, as small as a sparrow may be, it had all the essentials. Han Shao successfully found the market. A bearded white man was doing business on the back of the pickup truck. Outsider. The bearded merchant glanced at Han Shao coldly. Do you know the rules here? What rules? We only accept barter. That's good. I don't have a single cent on me. I need a map, 3 buckets of water, and 5 kilograms of food. Meat jerky and bread will do. Han Shao took out a pile of bullets from his bag. I want to pay with these. Bullets. The bearded merchant's eyes lit up. He subconsciously looked at Han Zhao's bulging backpack, and a greedy look appeared on his face. Bullets were hard currency in the wilderness. All wanderers needed bullets, and the process of making bullets was more complicated than the homemade guns. Even if a small group of wanderers could make bullets, the production rate was very low. Every shot was one less bullet. 150 bullets, the bearded merchant said. Han Zhao's face darkened. You're asking for a sky-high price. The things he wanted were just daily supplies. According to the market price, it would not exceed 100. Even if he considered the scarcity of resources in the wilderness, the premium would not exceed 500. As for the bullets? 1 bullet would cost at least 3, and these were the lowest quality bullet. Every brass bullet Han Shao gave was high-quality ammunition produced in the assembly line. The shells were shiny, new, and exquisite. 10 bullets were not expensive, and 150 bullets would cost at least 1,500. Han Shao only brought 300 bullets, and the bearded merchant wanted half of them. This was clearly a rip-off. Don't buy it if you can. The bearded merchant lowered his head and rubbed his fingernails with an expression of, "I'll eat you up." Chapter 14. Supplies were very important to him. Han Xiao sighed, counted 150 bullets, and was about to pay. Big Beard shook his finger and started to raise the price. 180 bullets. Han Zhao's eyes were filled with anger. King profiteer. You're raising the price. Big Beard saw this and shouted exaggeratedly, "Oh, what a scary look! Do you want to kill me? Everyone, come and look. Someone wants to kill me." As soon as he said that, dozens of rogues surrounded him. Some of them even picked up weapons like crowbars and iron rods, eyeing him fiercely. "This is our territory. You dare to make trouble? Okay, you're the best. 180 bullets, that's the price." Han Xiao was so angry that his teeth itched. He did not want to cause more trouble, so he squeezed the words out of his mouth and threw the bullets to the ground. Big Beard smiled proudly and asked someone to bring the things over and hand them to Han Xiao. After confirming that the map and supplies were correct, Han Xiao gave Big Beard the middle finger. He did not want to stay a second longer and turned to leave. At this time, Big Beard spoke again. "Hey, do you want to walk out of this forest on foot? Why? Do you have a problem?" Han Xiao stopped and said in annoyance, "I have an old pickup truck. Do you want it?" Big Beard said casually as if the unpleasantness just now had never happened. "I can't afford to pay you," Han Xiao said sarcastically. "You can afford it." Big Beard pointed to Han Zhao's backpack. "You have so many bullets. You must have brought a lot of guns. Use those guns to pay." High-quality guns were very popular among rogues. They generally relied on hunting to maintain their food source. One more good gun meant one more hunter. Han Zhao's backpack was full of the Owl Squad's equipment. The quality was very good, and there were also sniper rifles and bulletproof vests. It was more than enough to exchange for an old pickup truck. However, he shook his head and refused Big Beard's proposal. The tracks left behind by driving in the forest were too obvious. It was basically the same as pointing at the nose of the pursuers and saying, "Did you see that I'm taking this road? If you don't want to race with the helicopter, it's better to walk." Furthermore, he had another consideration. These guns were all standard weapons of the Germinal organization. Once a Germinal organization team came to this settlement and discovered the organization's standard weapons, the settlement would be destroyed. Selling these guns was equivalent to indirectly killing people. Although Han Xiao had just been ripped off by the merchants, he was not that crazy. The bearded man was still unwilling to give up and wanted to sell a few more words. Suddenly, a bell-like voice sounded from the side. "Carol, you are tricking an outsider again." A burly man in an animal skin hunting coat strode over, and the crowd parted automatically as he passed. It was obvious that he had a lot of prestige in this settlement. Big Beard Carlos had a bitter expression. "Hu Hongjun, I finally managed to make a deal with you. Don't meddle in my business." Hu Hongjun snatched the bullet from Big Beard and handed it to Han Xiao. He said generously, "The things you want are not worth much. I'll give them to you. Here, these are your bullet." Han Xiao was stunned. He carefully looked at Hu Hongjun. This man was Asian. He had a strong body, white hair, sharp eyes, and a sense of heroism in his speech. His righteous action of returning the bullet immediately made Han Xiaoxin have a good impression of him. "Hey, what should I do?" Carlos shouted. Hu Hongjun did not even turn his head. "Isn't it just some food? I'll return it to you tomorrow." Carlos was flustered and exasperated. "It was not easy to rip off a customer, and you gave me a fair trade. Do you know what business is?" Hu Hongjun was very hospitable. He said, "You are a guest from afar. Looking at your haggard appearance, you must not be used to life in the forest. How about this? Stay at my house for a night and continue tomorrow." Han Shao hesitated for a moment before nodding. He indeed wanted to have a good rest. Moreover, his first impression of Hu Hongjun was that he was a straightforward and forthright man. He did not seem like a bad person. Of course, even if the other party had bad intentions, Han Shao would not be scared. The two left together. The surrounding wanderers also dispersed. Only Big Beard Carlos was left. He was angry, but he did not dare to say anything. There was no other way. Hu Hongjun was one of the hunters in the settlement. Everyone relied on him to hunt and bring back food. Moreover, Hu Hongjun was very generous and had a good relationship with people. He did not dare to offend him. Hu Hongjun brought Han Shao back to his tent. As soon as he opened the curtain and entered, he shouted, I have a guest. Make more food today." "Got it," a woman replied. Han Shao walked into the tent and saw the woman called in. She looked ordinary and wore a plain cloth dress. Han Shao noticed that her eyes were lifeless. She was clearly blind. "This is my wife." Hu Hongjun smiled. "Hello," and heard the voice and smiled in Han Zhao's direction. She fumbled around and took out pots and pans, as well as dried meat and wild vegetables. She placed them on the simple stone stove in the center of the tent and started cooking. Since the other party was so friendly, Han Shao did not hold back. He sat on the ground and started chatting with Hu Hongjun. After some conversation, Han Shao confirmed that Hu Hongjun did not have any other intentions. He was just being hospitable. He could not help but let down his guard a little. "I just noticed that most of the people in this settlement are white people. Why are you with them?" Han Shao asked. The intelligent species in the Blue Star were humans. There were a total of 4 races: black people, white people, yellow people, and Shanu people. They were all products of natural selection. Darwin said that it was natural selection. The more dangerous the environment, the stronger the life. The Shanu people were stronger than the black people. There's no special reason. During the war, I happened to meet this group of wanderers. At that time, An was sick and needed to be taken care of, so I stayed. Although our countries and races are different, we're all survivors of the old era. There's no distinction between you and me. We're just in the same boat." Hu Hongjun sighed. Blue Star originally had hundreds of countries. After coming into contact with interstellar forces, they understood that having so many countries on a planet was a complete waste of the planet's limited resources. If they were not unified, there would be endless internal friction. If this continued, when the planet's resources were depleted, the civilization would be trapped on the planet and lose the opportunity to step into the universe. Therefore, with the help of some people, the social environment changed drastically in a few decades. Wars, negotiations, economic pressure, and through peaceful or not peaceful ways, the social environment was reduced to only 6 countries. Those who lost their countries, some chose to join the Six Nations, some chose to join the Germinal Organization, and the rest became wanderers. The world of Blue Star was in the throes of the transition from the old era to the new era. The people of those countries that were annexed, destroyed, and disintegrated were immersed in grief and disillusionment. Everyone hoped that their country could survive, but when the wheel of history felt that it had stopped for long enough and needed to move on, some things that seemed indispensable could only accept the fate of being abandoned by the era and become a few words left in the history books. To give some simple examples, such as the wave of layoffs in the early 1990s, countless iron rice bowls were broken, or the 5,000 years of Chinese history, until the Republic of China, the imperial system that lasted for thousands of years, was finally destroyed. Before that, the existence of the emperor was something that everyone thought was natural. Another example was the dark religion in the Western Middle Ages. The progress of civilization was like a surging river that could not be stopped. Everyone, everything, and even countries were just sand in the river, drifting with the flow. Those with limited individual strength could only vent their grief on the internet or in demonstrations, or immerse themselves in the glory of their country in the past. The more radical ones refused to accept the invitations of the citizens of the Six Nations and became wanderers in the wilderness, living in groups in the wild. Wanderers made up 30% of the entire population of the planet. Some warriors who had sacrificed their blood and sweat for their country used even more extreme actions to oppose the Six Nations. The Germinal Organization was a behemoth born in such a social environment. Its philosophy was to overthrow the Six Nations and unite against a common enemy. It was worthy of being the leader of the underground world. It was easy to maintain one's status, but reform was always accompanied by pain. Even if it was universal knowledge, there were still stubborn people who were unwilling to accept it. Between personal interests and social progress, there would always be some people who would choose the former. These people usually played the role of resistance on the path of evolution. After all, selfishness could bring actual benefits, but righteousness was just an illusory belief. Selfless people were rare animals. Otherwise, selflessness would not be called a virtue. Otherwise, there would not be a need for the annual Touching China Award. It was just to tell everyone, look, there are still good people in the world. Learn from them and save the organization some trouble. Hu Hongjun said, ever since the Battle of Andria, history has been divided into two halves. The past few thousand years are called the Old Era, and the current era is the New Era. Sometimes, when you think about it, what was wrong with life in the past? It was peaceful and stable, but because of the so-called theory of internal friction, the consequences were probably more serious than internal friction. Besides, even if it were to happen, it would only happen a few hundred years later. The problems in the future would be left to the future generations to solve. Chapter 15. Who knows? Maybe in the eyes of most people, internal friction is like boiling a frog in warm water. Han Xiao shrugged. The Battle of Andria was the final battle of the Long War, the key battle that determined the structure of the Six Nations. Andria was the name of a continent that once had some countries. When the war broke out, the countries of the other continents seemed to have an unspoken agreement to use Andria as the main battlefield, controlling the scope of the war, not wanting to let the war destroy the ecology of the entire planet. Countless missiles, tanks, and planes bombarded Andria, and hundreds of millions of people lost their lives in Andria. After the war, Andrea's plants withered, the land was scorched, and the people were in a terrible situation. The rivers and lakes gave off the stench of rotting corpses, and the fertile green mountains were covered in a dark yellow shadow, becoming a dead zone. The Six Nations, on the other hand, retreated, leaving behind a mess and completely abandoning the Andria continent. They were like heartless scumbags. Now there were very few survivors in Andria, and all of them hated the Six Nations. Han Xiao noticed the calluses on Hu Hongjuan's palm. You were in the army before? Yes, I was in the army for more than 10 years. I thought that all soldiers of a fallen country would choose to join the Germinal Organization. Hu Hongjun shook his head and said, my motherland was annexed by Star Dragon through military negotiations. Those leaders have already compromised, so why should a soldier like me be so hostile? Although I don't like the Six Nations, I cherish the hard-won peace. The war has been going on for so many years, and it was about to end, but the Germinal Organization appeared out of nowhere, shouting the slogan of overthrowing the Six Nations, and attracted countless soldiers of a fallen country to join, wanting to start another war. Sigh, I'm just a boor, and I don't understand the ideals of the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization. I don't want to be involved in the war again. Yes, war is too cruel. My eyes were blinded by a stun grenade that suddenly exploded. Old Hu took me everywhere and finally settled down. Although life as a wanderer is a little tough, it's much better than before. As they spoke, the meat in the pot gradually emitted a fragrance. Han Xiao greedily sniffed and asked curiously, "How do you cook when you can't see?" And Buman said, "Don't look down on me. Although I'm blind, I still have my sense of smell, hearing, and touch. I'm also nimble. I'm not a cripple." Hu Hongjun smiled bitterly. "She's stubborn and won't let me take care of her no matter what. I can't drag you down by being a cripple." An's voice was filled with tenderness. Hu Hongjun awkwardly scratched his head. It seemed that he was not used to teasing his wife in front of outsiders. He hurriedly changed the topic. "Right, I'll let you see my baby." Han Zhao's expression changed slightly. He thought of some unhealthy things and quietly moved back. Fortunately, Hu Hongjun did not take out a big treasure. He opened the box next to him and took out an old rifle wrapped in cloth. He proudly said, "Let's see if you know what it is. Army knife rifle, old, quality. Gray, white, basic stats. Attack 38 to 40, fire rate 0. 9/S, magazine capacity 20, effective range 200 meters, damage level 25, durability 5/300 bonus attribute. DX plus 1 length, 0. 77 m weight. 7. 1 lb additional effect. Accuracy, stable trajectory, low wind influence. Remark: this weapon has participated in many battles with its owner. Good gun." Han Technician's professionalism exploded. He praised, "Although it has been used for many years, it still feels so smooth. The barrel is long and straight, and the bullet has enough acceleration range. The force of the spray is definitely strong. The exterior is black and glossy, and the murderous aura is dense. And it's really a lethal weapon." Why did the atmosphere suddenly change? Was it an illusion? "This is my old partner. It has been with me for almost 10 years. Hu Hongjun laughed. "Don't look at the new exterior. That's because I always use oil. In fact, the components inside are all old. I haven't used this gun to hunt for a long time." The two chatted happily, and before they knew it, the sky had turned dark, and had finished cooking. A pot of fragrant meat broth filled the air. The broth was rich, pure white, and had the texture of milk. The meat was cooked thoroughly, and pieces of wild vegetables floated on top of the oily broth, embellishing it with a touch of emerald green. It was very appetizing. The smell of the meat was like a seductive little fairy, firmly locking onto Han Zhao's gaze. He swallowed his saliva, and his stomach that had been tortured by food for 7 days kept growling. His favorability towards Hu Hongjun kept popping up on top of his head. After wolfing down his dinner, Hu Hongjun asked Han Zhao to stay for the night. It was difficult to refuse such kindness, and considering that it was indeed difficult to travel at night, Han Zhao agreed. He used a curtain to separate a compartment in the tent, and Hu Hongjun and made a bed for him. "Your backpack is too big. I'll put it outside for you," An said. The space in the tent was limited, and his compartment was very small. It could only fit a bed, and it certainly couldn't fit a backpack full of guns. He thought about it and asked Hu Hongjun for a piece of animal skin. He picked out the extra guns in the backpack, unloaded all the bullets, removed the triggers, and wrapped them tightly in the animal skin, and put them in a corner. He was careful and put a leaf in the animal skin package. If the package was opened, he would find out the next day. The backpack was filled with all the ammunition, and it was just the right size to put it at the end of the bed. Hu Fei was about to turn around, but the scene of Han Zhao hitting him flashed in his mind. He stopped in his tracks and did not have the guts to look for Han Zhao. Although he was afraid, it would be nonsense to say that Hu Fei did not hold any grudges against Han Zhao. He did not dare to look for trouble with Han Zhao, but he was not willing to just let it go. "Hu Fei, oh Hu Fei, show some of your manly courage and take revenge for your grievances." Hu Fei made up his mind and thought of a way to take revenge. He was very curious about Han Zhao's bulging backpack. He had noticed the animal skin package in the tent just now. Hu Fei clearly remembered that there was no such thing in his house, so it must be the fierce person's luggage. In the middle of the night it was quiet. Everyone in the settlement was asleep. Hu Fei, who had been waiting for a long time, finally made his move. He tiptoed and sneaked into the tent like a thief. He carefully touched the animal skin package. Hee, let me see what you brought. Hu Fei's eyes widened as he opened the layers of animal skin. He was so shocked that he almost fell on his butt. Guns. All of them were excellent guns. Hu Fei was ecstatic. His eyes were filled with greed. It was indeed good stuff. He wanted to take all the guns, but when he thought of Han Zhao's fierce look, his courage shrunk. If that fierce person found out that his luggage was missing, he would definitely kill him. I can't take all of them, Hu Fei was reluctant. He gritted his teeth and picked up 2 Type 73 Wasp pistols. He did not have the guts to take more. Forget it, at least my uncle treated you well. It's not too much to take 2 of your guns. Hu Fei convinced himself. He returned the animal skin package to its original state and left quietly. Chapter 16. The next morning, Han Xiao woke up and felt relaxed. His exhaustion from the escape had been swept away. Brother Han, you are awake. Hu Hongjun was stretching his body at the door and said with a smile. This family was really warm. They gave him food and a place to stay. Although he was reluctant to leave, Han Xiao still expressed his intention. Thank you for your hospitality. Unfortunately, I can't stay for long. If there is a chance, I will repay you. And came over with a small package and said with a smile, I made some pancakes. You can eat them on the way. Han Xiaoxin felt warm in his heart. He took the package with both hands. The warmth of the pancakes passed through his palms and into his heart. He smiled and then realized that and couldn't see. He said sincerely, I slept very well last night. Thank you very much for your hospitality. And covered her mouth and chuckled. Haha, you are welcome. We are all brothers. Hu Hongjun said proudly. Han Xiao packed his luggage and put on his backpack and animal skin package. Suddenly, he noticed that the leaves in the package were gone. His face sank and said, Someone touched my package. Hu Hongjun was shocked. No way, and I didn't. Wait, Hu Fei, get out here. Hu Fei, who had been eavesdropping behind the tent, shuddered and walked out dejectedly. Han Zhao's eyes flashed and said with a smile, It's you again. Hu Fei shrunk his neck and didn't dare to look at Han Xiao. Hu Hongjun kicked his butt and said, Did you steal someone's stuff? Take it out now. Hu Fei bit his lips and reluctantly took out a Type 73 Wasp and gave it to Han Xiao. Brother Han, beat him as much as you want. This kid is asking for it. Hu Hongjun began to think about how to beat his nephew later. No need. Just take it back. It will be dangerous for you to keep it. Han Xiao took back the pistol and breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't care about his equipment. He was just worried that if he left the weapon behind, it would cause trouble for the settlement. Hu Hongjun had treated him well for the whole night, so he naturally couldn't leave behind a source of trouble. Hu Fei curled his lips in disapproval. He felt that Han Xiao was stingy. He clearly had so many guns, but he was reluctant to part with a single one. It's a small world, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Goodbye. Han Xiao formally bid farewell. Hu Hongjun nodded. Be careful. Han Xiao picked up his backpack and left. There was a saying that when receiving a drop of water from someone, one should naturally repay it. If there was a chance in the future, Han Xiao would definitely repay the favor of sending charcoal in snowy weather for one night. That savage is finally gone. Hu Fei wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Then, he was delighted. Fortunately, that guy didn't find out that I stole 2 guns. Hu Fei got rid of Hu Hongjun's scolding and returned to the back of the tent. He took out another Type 73 Wasp pistol from the box and played with it. He made up his mind that even if Han Xiao came back to denounce him, he would not admit to it and would not return it no matter what. But why didn't this gun have a trigger? The map drawn by the rogue was like a child's doodle for fun. However, it indicated the current location, which was enough for Han Xiao. He remembered the complete blue star map. He was currently in Star Dragon. According to the map, he would be able to walk out of the forest in 3 days and find the railway. At that time, he would be able to hitch a ride to the city. At noon, Han Xiao found a place to eat something to replenish his stamina. He glanced at the animal skin bag that had a few holes made by thorns and branches. Han Xiao opened the animal skin bag and was about to put the guns one by one into his backpack when he suddenly stopped. It seems that one gun is missing, he counted again. It was not an illusion. Han Xiao's heart sank. If the gun was left in the settlement, it would be terrible. Han Xiao did not have time to eat. He hurriedly packed up his things and strode back to where he came from. 2 black bulletproof armored vehicles came to the rogue settlement. Number 1 led a fully armed test subject team and used the muzzle to force all the rogues to gather in the square and squat together with their hands on their heads. All the rogues recognized the Germinal organization's insignia, and they were all terrified. Have you seen this person before? Number 1 pressed the terminal on his palm, and a virtual image appeared in the air. It was a picture of Han Xiao. No, I haven't. Everyone denied it at once. Everyone knew the Germinal organization's way of doing things. As long as they were not involved, they would not attack the rogues. The 6 nations and the Germinal organization were on opposite sides, and the rogues were the indecisive ones in the middle. They usually remained neutral, but they could also side with either side. Thus, the 6 nations and the Germinal organization had a rule against using force against the rogues. Only Hu Fei trembled. Guilt was written all over his face. Number 1 was frustrated. He had tracked Han Xiao for 7 days and only found this settlement. However, no one had seen Han Xiao before. This meant that he was going in the wrong direction. Let's go. Number 1 snorted. He was about to lead the team into the vehicle when he suddenly noticed Hu Fei's expression. Suspicion rose in Number 1's heart. He stopped and shouted, "Catch that brat!" Hu Fei was shocked. He was dragged out of the crowd by the test subject. He trembled like a quail. Number 1 squinted and asked, "Do you know the person in the picture?" Hu Fei shook his head. "No, I don't." Number 1 saw that Hu Fei's waist was bulging with something hard. He shouted, "Search him." Hu Fei was pushed to the ground and watched as the Type 73 Wasp was found. "This is our gun." Number 1's face turned cold. He pointed the gun at the crowd and said angrily, "Number 0 has been here before. How dare you hide it? Do you want to die? Speak. Where did he go?" The deterrence of the gun made the rogues restless. They all looked at the bearded Carol, who was the first to come in contact with Han Xiao. Carol was like an ostrich hiding in the corner. He was anxious when he saw the situation. "Why are you looking at me? I just sold him something." That's why Hu Hongjun knew about that guy's whereabouts. The people around Hu Hongjun immediately scattered as if avoiding the plague. Hu Hongjun saw that the situation had reached this point. He could only slowly stand up and said, "I don't know." Carol was anxious to clear his name. He immediately retorted, "How can you not know? You helped him and even hosted him for a night." Number 1's face suddenly turned cold. The rogues were frightened. They all urged Hu Hongjun, "Hurry up and tell us what you know. Do you want to kill us for an outsider?" Hu Hongjun scolded Carol in his heart. He took a deep breath and made up his mind. He pointed in a direction and said, "That guy went that way." "Very good. You are very tactful." Number 1 smiled and shot without warning. Bang! A bloody hole appeared on Hu Hongjuan's forehead. His face froze. He was shocked. His body swayed and suddenly fell to the ground. A pool of blood expanded under his body. Hu Fei screamed and looked at Hu Hongjuan's body in horror. He died just like that? Number 1's face was as usual. It was as if he had just killed a chicken. The rogue's concealment made him very angry. Especially after he heard that Hu Hongjun hosted Han Xiao. He immediately wanted to kill him. As long as someone had a little relationship with Han Shao, Number 1 didn't mind sending them to hell to repent. Old who? And noticed something. Her face was pale. She stood up shakily and followed the sound to her husband. She staggered and stumbled. Number 1 took out his pistol and shot Anne's head from far away. Half of the back of her head was blown up by the bullet. Her brain and blood spilled all over the ground, and fell on the ground. She was only an arm's length away from Hu Hongjun. Her lifeless eyes were dyed red by the splashing blood. Number 1 glanced at the corpse and sneered. Courting death. Hu Fei broke down. He collapsed on the ground and cried. He regretted it very much. In a moment of greed, he killed his uncle's family. The rogues were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Looking at Hu Hongjun and Anne's bodies, they felt sorry for them. The handheld terminal was connected to the surveillance screen of the Germinal organization leader. The leader shouted, "What are you doing? Who told you to kill people?" Number 1 hurriedly admitted his mistake. These rogues didn't report it. I just wanted to show my power. We'll leave immediately. The leader shook his head and said, "Forget it. Since we've already killed them, let's do it cleanly. Don't let the news spread." Number 1 nodded. His face turned cold and he made a hand gesture. The continuous gunshots startled countless birds in the forest. The dusk was like blood. Han Shao rushed and finally returned to the settlement before the sky turned dark. From afar, he could smell the pungent smell of blood. His heart sank immediately. I'm late. The noisy settlement was dead silent. What entered their eyes was the scene of a massacre. There were bloodstains everywhere, and the ground under their feet was soaked in blood. It was wet and sticky, and every step they took left a bloody footprint. Han Shao saw the tragic deaths of Hu Hongjun and Anne. His eyes narrowed, and anger rose in his heart. At this time, a figure climbed up from the ground. Han Shao recognized it as the bearded merchant who had extorted a large sum of money from him. Carol was still in a state of shock. He had fainted when the massacre started, but he was lucky enough to escape with his life. Before he had the time to rejoice, he saw Han Shao standing at the side looking at him, and his body started to tremble like a sieve. Han Shao rushed forward and grabbed Carol's collar. What happened here? The Germinal organization. It was the Germinal organization. We didn't reveal your whereabouts, so they killed people to vent their anger. Our people died so miserably. Seeing that Hu Hongjun treated you well, you have to avenge us. Chapter 17. Cough, cough, cough. Weak coughing sounds came from not far away. Han Shao walked over and saw that Hu Fei, who had been shot 5 or 6 times, was not dead yet. He looked like he could not be saved. When Han Shao saw the Type 73 Wasp in Hu Fei's hand, he understood everything. His emotions were complicated. I told you it was dangerous. Why didn't you listen? Hu Fei reached out his trembling hands and grabbed onto Han Zhao's trousers tightly. He cried his heart out and said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been greedy. I regret it. I was wrong. I was really wrong." Hu Fei pointed at Carol. "Don't believe him. He betrayed my uncle Hu Hongjun." He coughed out another mouthful of blood. "You can't be saved. I can only make it less painful for you." Han Shao shook his head, reached out his hand and broke Hu Fei's neck. "Don't listen to his." Carol hurriedly tried to explain. Han Shao suddenly stood up, pulled out his gun, and fired. The bullet pierced through Carol's head. Carol knelt down in shock and died with his eyes wide open. "Everyone is dead. You should go and join them." Han Shao closed his eyes. Ever since he found out about the tragedy in the settlement, Han Zhao's rising killing intent was restrained by his cold rationality. It was like using a cage to imprison a tiger. The more irritable he was, the calmer he was. Han Shao came to Hu Hongjun's body and looked in the direction Hu Hongjun pointed. It was the direction where the test subject team went. The tracks went deep into the forest. It was in the opposite direction from where he left. Hu Hongjun did not betray him. Han Xiaoxin suddenly twitched. It was as if a nail had pierced into his heart. Even until the end, Hu Hongjun did not betray him. Was it worth it? You have triggered Level E mission, Revenge, mission hint. Kill the test subject team mission reward. 15,000 EXP. Han Xiao did not look at Hu Hongjun and An's bodies anymore. He walked into the tent and took out the old military knife and rifle that Hu Hongjun regarded as a treasure. He did not know if it was an illusion, but a black light flashed across the surface of the military knife and rifle. You want to avenge your old friend, don't you? Han Zhao's face was tense. He took out all the guns in his backpack, including the military knife and rifle, and disassembled them into parts. With the military knife and rifle as the main body, he used these parts to gradually modify them. Basic repair and basic enhancement had both reached LV10. Although the names were a little lame, they were the core skills of the early stages of the mechanic class, and their effects were very outstanding at max level. Han Xiao was very familiar with modifying basic firearms. Saber rifle, improved sniper, quality, white basic stats, attack 66 to 69, fire rate 1/S, magazine capacity 10, effective range 450 meters, energy output level 37 bonus attribute, plus 2 DEX length, 0. 86 M weight, 8. 3 lb additional effect. Accuracy, stable trajectory, minimal wind influence. Additional effect. Penetration. After special modifications, sniper caliber bullets can be used to increase the penetration power of the target. Note, it is thirsting for revenge. After counting the ammo, there were only 25 sniper bullets, all of which were taken from Yin Dao. There were 4 tracks on the ground, which meant that there were 2 cars chasing after him, and there were no more than 12 people at most. Han Xiao carried his gun and walked in the direction that the pursuers had left, disappearing into the forest. Of course, it was impossible to run faster than a car, so Han Xiao did not plan to chase after them. Hu Hongjun had pointed him in the wrong direction. When the pursuers could not find him, there was an 80% chance that they would turn back. What Han Xiao wanted to do was to ambush them on this path that they had to take. Of course, if Han Xiao turned around and continued to run, the enemy would definitely not be able to find him. However, the voice in his heart told him that if he did not use the enemy's blood to vent his anger, he would regret it. Even if there was no mission, he would still make the same choice. Germinal. He gritted his teeth, and his killing intent was dense. In the forest at night, it was so dark that one could not see his own fingers. A long wolf's howl came from afar. Han Xiao quietly hid in the forest with his eyes slightly closed. He had been in this position for 3 hours, like a patient hunter, waiting for his prey to step into the trap. A series of engine roars approached quickly. Han Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. 4 high-speed headlights appeared within his shooting range. You're here. Han Zhao's tone was as calm as water, as if he was receiving a guest at home. He put on the infrared night vision goggles that he had seized from the Owl Squad, and 2 orange-red car silhouettes appeared in front of his eyes. Han Xiao pulled the bolt, put the target into the scope, and carefully adjusted the sight distance. He held his breath and aimed for a full 8 seconds before pulling the trigger. In the flash of the gun, a yellow sniper bullet jumped out of the muzzle, passed through the gaps in the forest, and flew hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye, accurately hitting the tires of the high-speed moving car. Pa! A tire burst. The armored off-road vehicle in front crashed into a tree, and the car behind was forced to stop. Number 1 got out of the car dizzily and scolded, "Do you know how to drive?" "Captain, the tire burst." "Why would a low-pressure tire burst?" A team member squatted down and said in shock, "There's a bullet embedded in it." Enemy attack. Number 1's brain buzzed. At this moment, Gunshots rang out again from hundreds of meters away. The team member who was checking the tires had his head blown up in front of number 1, and blood splattered all over number 1's body. "It's a sniper! Quick, find the enemy's location. Everyone be alert, hide behind the car." However, this was the first time the test subjects had participated in a real battle. Using the battlefield theory they had learned on a daily basis, they scrambled to find cover. During this process, the fatal gunshot rang out again, and another team member was shot in the head. Number 1 shouted, "Get down!" All the team members hurriedly got down, and only then did the gunshots stop. What followed was a somber silence. Everyone was panicking, and only number 1 could barely calm down. He hurriedly asked the organization for help through the handheld terminal. The situation was in a stalemate. No one dared to stand up and expose themselves to the sniper's sight. It was as if there was a demon in the darkness, waiting to reap lives at any time. "Who attacked us?" "I don't know. It's so dark, the enemy must have night vision goggles. What do we do now?" "Just keep lying down and wait for reinforcements." Number 1 shouted, "Don't be stupid, won't the enemy escape? The enemy is only one person, and we are like a group of frightened ostriches burying our heads in the ground. What will the organization think of us as cowards?" The test subject team members' faces changed. Number 1 said fiercely, "It's just one enemy, we have cars, guns, and people. Can't we win?" "Yes, we have to fight back. First, determine the sniper's location." A team member steeled his heart, quickly stood up and then laid down, trying to lure the sniper to reveal his location. But a fatal bullet almost instantly hit his chest, and blood bloomed. The force of the bullet sent him flying a few meters, and when he landed on the ground silently, it immediately dispelled the other team members' thoughts of imitating him. Number 1 felt a chill run down his back. Such accurate marksmanship, who was the enemy? The team member's sacrifice was not in vain. The test subject team saw a flash of gunfire in the darkness. "Found it, 300 meters to the south. Get in the car and rush over." Han Xiao saw from the night vision goggles that the enemy stood up at the same time and ran toward another intact armored off-road vehicle. He immediately understood the enemy's plan. They wanted to rush over with the armored off-road vehicle. The thermal imaging showed that there were still 7 enemies. Obviously, they knew that the sniper's shooting speed was slow, so they were prepared to sacrifice 1 or 2 people to get in the car. Han Xiao could not kill 7 people in an instant, so he calmly fired 2 shots and killed 2 more enemies. He watched as the enemy got in the car. The armored off-road vehicle's engine roared as it rapidly approached. Military knives and rifles could not penetrate the heavy armor, so they could not aim at the enemy's hub from the front. Han Xiao was alone, so he was in danger. Chapter 18. Go to Hell. Number 1 sneered and drove toward Han Xiao's position. No one noticed that between 2 trees there was a rope, and in the middle of the rope there was a string of grenades. The armored vehicle crashed into it, and the rope suddenly tightened. The 2 trees were almost uprooted, and the armored vehicle also paused. The people in the vehicle were immediately knocked over. Before they could react, the grenades exploded. The flames soared into the sky, and the bulletproof glass of the armored vehicle was blown into a large snowflake shape. Since it was an ambush, how could Han Xiao not be prepared? He used a thick rope and the last few G-type grenades to set up a simple trap to stop the vehicle. At the moment the grenades exploded, Han Xiao took off his night vision goggles. In the darkness, the flames were bright, and he could see clearly with the naked eye. Without saying a word, he aimed at the front window of the armored vehicle and fired. The recoil passed from the butt of the gun to the shoulder, and even his strength couldn't help but tremble slightly. This was enough to show the power of the military knife rifle. Bang! One bullet after another hit the window, and the cracks quickly spread. The target was the driver's seat. Number 1 gritted his teeth and pulled up the person in the passenger's seat to block the front. The next moment, the glass shattered and the bullets pierced through. The skull of the scapegoat was blown away, and the brain matter splashed all over Number 1's face. The stench was unbearable. Abandon the vehicle. The team hurriedly moved. At the moment of life and death, Number 1 didn't care about the range. The submachine gun poured bullets and shot toward Han Zhao's position from afar. The rest of the team followed suit. Han Zhao paused his attack and hid on the ground. He also changed his magazine. The bullets whizzed past his head. He knew that the opponent was already in a mess. After a round of shots, all the enemies would need to change their bullet. At that time, they would be at his mercy. Soon, the test subject team tasted the consequences of their impulsiveness. When they emptied their magazines at the same time, the sound of the sniper rifle rang again. It was like the sound of the king of hell ringing the bell. Shot after shot. Accurate and deadly. Bang, bang. The rhythm of the shooting actually had a special sense of beauty, making people think of sophisticated machinery for no reason. The enemies were all shot in the head by him one by one. Han Zhao consciously avoided Number 1 and let him stay until the end. His teammates fell one by one. Number 1 was so angry that his whole body trembled. He raised his gun and fired wildly. He lost his self-control and roared, "Who the hell are you? Get the hell out here!" He was originally full of confidence in the test subject team. However, he experienced such a crushing defeat in his first battle, shattering all his confidence. Ka. Number 1's magazine was empty again. He roared, "Come out!" Han Zhao appeared with a cold face. Number 1's eyes widened in disbelief. How could it be you? In his opinion, after Han Zhao escaped from the base, he would definitely run away like a stray dog. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Han Zhao would dare to turn around and attack the pursuers. No matter how much Number 1 doubted Han Zhao's record of escaping from the laboratory, he knew that he was wrong, very wrong. Zero was much stronger than him. This discovery instantly ignited the flames of jealousy in Number 1's heart. "I'm the best, you're just a failure." Trash. New hatred and old hatred surged in his heart. Number 1 lost his mind and pulled out his pistol to attack. Han Zhao raised the muzzle slightly and the large-caliber sniper bullet broke Number 1's right arm. Only a layer of blood and skin was left. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. Number 1 stared blankly at the broken arm, at a loss. Han Zhao fired again and broke one of Number 1's legs. Number 1 fell to the ground. At this time, Han Zhao slowly changed the magazine and then broke Number 1's remaining hands and feet. Number 1 was paralyzed on the ground, unable to move. His eyes were filled with incomparable vicious hatred, staring at Han Zhao. Zero! The howl was hoarse and gloomy, like a wounded beast. Too noisy. Han Zhao strode forward and kicked out, breaking Number 1's jaw. "Do you know why I left you until the end? Because I don't want you to die so easily." Number 1 could not speak and could only groan from his throat. He writhed on the ground like a snail, blood spurting out from his broken limbs. At this time, the handheld terminal that had fallen to the side lit up automatically, and the virtual image of the leader appeared. "Zero, that's enough." Han Zhao frowned and did not speak. "I am the leader of the Germinal organization," the leader said with a domineering tone. "Betrayal is a dead end. You can't win against the organization. No matter where you run to, the organization has the ability to catch you and bring you back for trial. You will be immersed in endless fear every minute and every second of your life, but I can give you a way out." Han Zhao was expressionless. "What way out?" "Obediently return to the organization, sincerely admit your mistakes, and accept our trial. I can give you a chance to retain your memory and let you obtain a higher position, no longer a test subject," the leader said. He admired Number 0's ability very much and wanted to understand the reason for the mutation. If it could be replicated, the organization would have another powerful combat force. Number 1 heard this, and his eyes were filled with extreme anger. Why should Number 0 be treated better than him? He had killed so many people, why should he be roped in? Han Shao understood Number 1's expression and asked playfully, I've killed so many people, and you still want to rope me in? A bunch of trash. Death is not to be regretted, the leader replied decisively, as if the corpses on the ground did not exist. Number 1 trembled, and his heart sank. What makes you think I will work for you? The leader said matter-of-factly, the organization is where the destiny lies. It is a great cause, and it is natural for you to work for us. What are you hesitating for? Oh, I understand. Is it because you feel that the previous treatment was not fair? Don't be so petty. Those who achieve great things do not care about trifles. It's just a little humiliation, and compared to our final goal, it is insignificant. I'm not interested in your ideals at all, Han Shao said calmly. You killed my friend, so we're enemies. It's pointless to talk about it. The leader's tone was cold. If you reject me, no matter how big the world is, there will be no place for you. I will destroy you. Han Zhao's tone was serious. The germinal organization would not be convinced by anyone, and they would not feel a trace of guilt. The only way to solve violence was to use more violence. The leader seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world. Destroy the organization? Just you? Who do you think you are? Compared to the organization, you are a pathetic ant that can be easily crushed. Killing some trash makes you arrogant, and you think you can fight the organization alone? You are a frog in a well, and you overestimate yourself. Then you wait and see. By the way, you have no idea how big the world is. Han Shao shook his head and fired 3 shots at Number 1's chest, sending the bullets into his heart. Number 1's eyes quickly dimmed. The test subject team was wiped out. The leader was wearing a mask, so Han Shao could not see his expression. Even through the virtual communication channel, Han Shao could feel the leader's rage. You will regret this, the leader said coldly and ended the call. You have killed Number 1 Valkyrie test subject. You have gained 900 EXP. Revenge completed. You have gained 15,000 EXP. Kata, the military knife rifle automatically disintegrated. The internal structure of the old gun had long deteriorated, and this battle was the end of its service life. The SWP sniper rifle obtained from the Night Owl squad required the skill Snipe. So Han Shao disassembled it into parts and modified the military knife rifle. Killing the test subject team gave him thousands of EXP. Including the mission reward, he had gained more than 20,000 EXP. Since he had become enemies with the germinal organization, Han Shao not only had to escape, but he also had to think of a way to cause damage to the organization. His current strength was indeed insignificant compared to the germinal organization, but he had the ability to deal a heavy blow to the organization. The countless advanced intelligence in his mind was his real trump card. In order to make full use of this information, he had to rely on someone powerful enough to stand up to the germinal organization. That left him with only the 6 nations: Star Dragon, Maple, Theseus, Raylan, Hesla, and Ordina. Star Dragon was the closest to him. Compared to Raylan's ruthlessness, Maple's inflexibility, Hesla's greed, and Ordina's scheming, Star Dragon's internal culture was the mildest. Furthermore, Star Dragon's hatred for the germinal organization ran deep. Chapter 19. At dawn, the Black Harrier helicopter finally arrived. The leader, Hela, and the rest of the team arrived at the place where the test subjects had been wiped out. Glancing at Number 1's twisted corpse, the leader let out a dissatisfied snort under his mask. Trash! The researcher moved the test subjects' corpses together and said, "They're all dead." With his hands behind his back, the leader gazed into the distance. After a long silence, he said, "In the name of the Germinal Organization, issue a bounty on number 0 on the dark net. Regardless of life or death, the bounty is 1 million. Everyone was shocked. The Germinal Organization was a giant crocodile, the king of the underground world. They had not issued a bounty in at least 3 years. Why would they make such a big fuss over a test subject who had defected? You seem to value him too much. Number 0 can't even escape in time. What harm can he do to the organization? Humph, since he dares to declare war on the organization, we'll let him know his own insignificance and destroy his laughable determination," the leader said coldly. "If number 0 is captured alive, no matter what methods you use, be it interrogation or experiment, find out the reason for number 0's mutation. Even if he dies, his corpse will be dissected for research." The researcher pointed at number 1's corpse and asked, "What about these people?" The leader was about to say throw them away when he suddenly thought of something and asked, "How are the preparations for the super soldier project going?" "The basic theory has been perfected. The next step is to carry out cell and animal tests. It is estimated that we can begin human experiments in 8 months without any sequelae." The leader interrupted. "Skip the cell and animal tests. Go straight to human experiment." The risk is high. Only Valkyrie test subjects can withstand the transformation. Test subjects are not easy to come by. Bringing the schedule forward will cause unnecessary losses," the leader said in an unfathomable tone. "Experiments can only create cannon fodder. Only hatred can create a real demon." He pointed at number 1. "He is the best raw material. Hatred will drive him to endure the painful transformation. Hatred will be his power furnace." "I understand." The researcher nodded. The leader looked at Hela and said, "Summon the spirit." Hela exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Her hands glowed with a faint gray light, and the surrounding temperature seemed to drop by 10 degrees in an instant. Faint cries came from Hela's palms. They sounded like the cries of ghosts. Number 1's body seemed to resonate. Strands of drifting gray fog appeared in the air and gently seeped into number 1's bleeding facial features as if they were being absorbed. The leader opened his windbreaker and took out a tube of bright red medicine from his pocket. Hela's expression changed slightly. Killing intent appeared in her eyes, but she immediately suppressed it. Aurora Resurrection Potion. She had extracted her sister's bone marrow and refined it into a super-effective healing potion. The test tube was tipped over and the medicine was poured onto number 1's body. The red liquid instantly dispersed and drilled into the skin through the pores. A miraculous change occurred. Number 1's body, which was already cold, regained its temperature. His wounds healed rapidly, his jaw reconnected, and his broken limbs began to grow flesh. The sound of his heartbeat gradually grew louder. Number 1 suddenly opened his eyes. His face was twisted with malice as he let out a shrill roar filled with monstrous hatred, causing the hair of those who heard it to stand on end. 0. You have activated the Germinal Organization faction connection. Favorability of the Germinal Organization decreased by 1,000 points. Germinal Organization. Hatred -1,000. Traitor System Notification. You have triggered the Grade A mission, Dust of the Fallen Seeds. Mission Notification. Freedom is priceless. For this, you were willing to take the risk of death, and finally received freedom in return. However, the Germinal Organization will not tolerate your betrayal. They have issued a bounty, and you will face endless pursuit. You will never be able to live in peace. This is a disguised cage, a gray sky. If you want to obtain true freedom, there is only one way out. You know what to do. Mission Notification. This is a long-term mission. The mission reward depends on the progress of your destruction of the Germinal Organization, direct or indirect. Current progress, 0%. Note, the progress is not fixed. If the germinal organization expands and develops, the progress will decrease accordingly. This mission can be terminated at any time. When the mission is completed, if the progress is less than 20%, it will be considered a failure. If the progress is more than 20%, the mission will be considered complete. The reward depends on the final progress. Generally speaking, grade B and above missions were related to the change of power on the current planet. In version 1.0 of Blue Star, the main event was the conflict between the Six Nations and the germinal organization. The players were also divided into different factions. According to Han Zhao's memory, there were quite a number of players who chose to join the germinal organization, providing a huge boost to the organization's development. If he wanted to obtain a high reward, he would have to become an enemy of the players who chose to join the germinal organization in the future. This mission required Han Zhao to directly or indirectly destroy the germinal organization. In the original spacetime, although the germinal organization did not win or lose, they did suffer heavy losses. He realized that there were potential competitors for this mission, and that was the other forces that were enemies of the germinal organization. Naturally, the damage that these forces dealt to the germinal organization would not be counted in his mission progress. 20% destruction. Wouldn't that mean that his damage alone would be enough to hurt the germinal organization? There was no other way to describe it other than to describe it. Although this mission was a huge trap, Han Zhao accepted it without hesitation. He and the germinal organization were mortal enemies, so there was no reason to reject it. Looks like this is my temporary main storyline mission. The germinal organization was the main storyline of Blue Star in version 1.0. Before Han Zhao grew up, he would stay in Blue Star, so there was no avoiding the conflict between factions. When a new character was created in Galaxy, the system would ask the player about their preferences, such as what kind of world they liked and what kind of class they liked. Based on the results of the questionnaire, the system would assign the new player to a random novice planet of different styles. Galaxy had a variety of civilizations, and players could always start with their favorite world. Ancient, magical, urban, sci-fi, every planet had one or a few main storyline events. This was one of the attractions of the game. There was no lack of casual players who liked to explore the universe and try out different civilizations and planets. Blue Star was one of the novice planets that had a low sci-fi level, similar to Earth. Of course, the core worldview of Galaxy was still the universe. As the game leveled up, the overall worldview would be gradually revealed to the players. There were also some players with a bad taste who would give a bad answer when asked by the system, such as horror, supernatural, and haunted. For such people, the system would also use bad taste to satisfy their bad taste. For example, if they were thrown to a planet full of ghosts, there would be no place to learn how to deal with ghosts. There would be two outcomes for these players. The first was to change their account, and the second, they could only brace themselves and continue playing. The second was to pray for the best. Galaxy's gaming cabin was immersive. Apart from the pain, the experience was extremely realistic. In the game registration disclaimer that most people did not read, it clearly stated that if the player felt uncomfortable during the game, causing physical or mental illness, the company would not be responsible. In fact, Han Zhao could find a very secluded spot in the wilderness and hide there until the germinal organization was greatly weakened. However, this way, he would not be able to grow. Although it was safe, it was meaningless, and he would definitely be overtaken by the players. Following the main storyline of the planet could trigger a large number of missions. The turbulent world was the best opportunity for growth. Countless events were clear in his mind, so how could he choose to avoid them? It took Han Zhao 3 days to walk out of the forest, which was within the borders of Stardragon. He had to admit that the germinal organization was really bold to have built a base in the heart of Stardragon. They were well aware of the principle of darkness under the light. After walking out of the forest, Han Shao found the railway and boarded a long-distance train to transport livestock to Stardragon's capital, the West capital. Due to the dangerous environment in the wilderness, as well as the undercurrents between the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization, most of the roads connecting the cities had been abandoned. The military had used the railway to connect the cities to transport supplies. The wild beasts were strong, so every city had an army stationed and built a sentry post. Tall, electrified iron barriers were the first line of defense of the city. Generally, when one saw the iron fence, one would know that the city was not far away. After 2 days of free riding, the silhouette of the electrified iron fence finally appeared in the distance. Han Shao pushed away a few hens that were jumping on his body. He took a deep breath and looked into the distance. Stardragon, West Capital, Division 13, here I come. Chapter 20. Stardragon was one of the Six Nations. Its population was mainly Asians, and its totem was the Dragon of the Stars. Stardragon and the Germinal Organization had a deep hatred for each other, dating back to the Andria War. The Germinal Organization and Stardragon's enemies had made a secret agreement to launch multiple large-scale terrorist attacks in Stardragon's territory during the critical period of the war. The death toll was over 100,000, and the frontline troops were forced to retreat. Stardragon almost lost its position as one of the Six Nations. The border of every city was surrounded by an endless wire fence. The only way into the city was through sentry posts, and the army was stationed there to check. The train stopped at an open-air platform outside the wire fence. A large number of military facilities were built around it, such as bunkers, watchtowers, and sniper posts, all of which were guarded by soldiers. Thousands of wanderers gathered at the station square, queuing up to be checked one by one. After confirming that they were not carrying weapons, wanted criminals, or infectious diseases, they were allowed to pass through the sentry post. The Six Nations had a policy of accepting wanderers to increase the population potential of the country by absorbing talents and elites who had wandered outside. Han Shao naturally did not want to be checked. The Germinal Organization must have put a bounty on him, and he would be exposed if he was checked. Although his goal was to contact Stardragon's intelligence agency, Division 13, he could not allow himself to be surrounded by the army. Coincidentally, there was a way to not pass through the sentry post. In his previous life, red players who were wanted by their country could not pass through the check. As long as they found the hidden NPC in charge of smuggling and paid some money, they could successfully sneak into the city. In the corner of the square sat an inconspicuous man. He did not line up, nor did he leave. He did not have a presence. This person was the head of the smuggling business. Normal people did not know of their existence, and they usually only accepted referrals from their regular customers. At this time, a thin young man came up to him and asked, "Is it safe?" The head looked up at Han Shao. After confirming that he was a stranger, he played dumb and asked, "What's safe?" "Use these to pay the bill. Is it enough?" Han Shao did not want to waste time. He threw the backpack full of guns to the head. The head opened the zipper, took a look, and hurriedly closed it again. "Oh my, he dares to wander around with so many guns. What kind of master is this young man?" The Western capital had gun control, and Han Shao did not enter the city to cause trouble, so these guns were useless to him. "Yes, of course." The head was confused. "How did you know that I'm a smuggling business?" "That's none of your business." Doing business without asking for details was the rule of this trade. Snakehead suppressed his curiosity and stood up to lead the way. There was a van truck parked outside the station. There were already a few passengers inside, and they all looked over. Han Zhao's expression was normal as he found a place to sit down. The windows were sealed with black tape to absorb light, so the scenery outside could not be seen. The car would send the passengers to a secret entrance behind the barbed wire. The officer there was bribed by the smuggler. As long as there were not too many smugglers, he would turn a blind eye. In the car, a short man next to him was bored to death. He looked for Han Xiao, who had a tender face, to chat. According to his experience, this kind of young man was the easiest to fool. "Little brother, is this your first time in the West Capital?" Han Xiao glanced at him. "Yeah, I don't know how to address you." "What about you, Ma Jie?" Han Xiao. Ma Jie flaunted his seniority. "Little Han, since this is your first time in the West Capital, I'll give you a good introduction. The West Capital is divided into 8 districts. The first district is the political core. It's the territory of those big officials. No one can enter it. The other 7 districts have their own characteristic. They are secretly controlled by the big shots in the gray area. I have to remind you, don't mess with them. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died." Han Xiao shook his head. The so-called gray area was a gray profit chain formed by drugs, the sex trade, smuggling, and firearms. Every city had people who were involved in illegal activities, but compared to the official forces, they were not even worth a fart. It was just that the civilians were subconsciously afraid of the fierce gray people and disdained the official forces because they knew that the official forces would not hurt them. This was human nature. It was like seeing armed guards on a cash truck on the road. Not many people would be afraid, but if it was a man without a uniform with a gun, most people would definitely run as far away as possible. Han Xiao did not expose Ma Jie's slight skill in front of him. He just laughed and played along. "What about the military?" What can the military do? Are they going to attack the city directly?" Disdain was written all over Ma Jie's face. He was full of respect for the gray area. Thinking of showing off, he boasted, "My cousin is a leader under a big boss. He has a bright future ahead of him. This time, I'm here to help him." "That's impressive," Han Xiao said perfunctorily. Ma Jie was even more excited when he heard that. He said, "Of course. My cousin is also a big shot in the West Capital. Have you heard of the famous yellow leopard?" "Oh, I forgot. Little Han, you haven't been to the West Capital before. Are you here to join your relatives?" Han Xiao said casually, "No, I want to find a job in the city and settle down." Ma Jie's mind immediately became active. If he could get a young man to join his cousin would definitely think highly of him. He said casually, "What do you think? Do you want to work for me? I promise you a bright future." Han Xiao politely declined, but in Ma Jie's eyes, it was the arrogance of a young man. He sneered. "Let me tell you, what kind of life do you live in the city? Living in the slums. Eating moldy food. Don't be fooled by the 6 states' high and mighty attitude of accepting rogues. They don't take you seriously at all. What kind of future do you have? Why don't you work for me? I don't dare to promise you anything else, but at least you can eat your fill." "No need." Han Xiao shook his head. Ma Jie thought that Han Xiao did not know how to appreciate his kindness. He said sarcastically, "You don't know what's good for you. Let's see how you regret it later. It's too late to curry favor with me." Han Xiao closed his eyes, indicating that he did not want to talk nonsense. Ma Jie glared at Han Xiao and did not continue the conversation. The car was parked far away from the train station. There was a gate with a dangerous sign hanging on it. It seemed to be a special passage for the transport of firearms. An officer was waiting behind the gate. Snakehead stuffed a stack of coins into the officer's hands. The officer had a satisfied smile on his face, and he actually opened the gate of the arms transport channel, allowing the stowaways to enter. "Follow the officer. He will take you to the outskirts of the city. There won't be any checks," Snakehead said. The officer did not say a word and led the way. Han Xiao and the others walked past various military buildings and out of the outpost. Finally, they saw the skyscrapers of the western capital in the distance, reflecting the sunlight. The stowaways scattered like birds and animals, each going their own way. Ma Jie glared at Han Shao and turned to leave. As Han Shao walked on the street, his clothes were torn and tattered. The passers-by all looked at him with disdain and avoided him. He had been trekking in the forest for 10 days and spent a few days on the train transporting livestock. The smell on his body was so touching that it made people cry. It was difficult to walk without money. If he was thirsty, he could only go to the fountain in the square. The most valuable thing on his body was probably the original smell of his underwear that had not been washed for 7 days. Of course, those were all small problems. Half an hour later, Han Shao walked out of the department store. He had changed into a clean white shirt and black pants. He was even smoking a cigarette. You have unlocked the skill, pickpocketing LVL1. Pickpocketing. Increase the success rate of stealing. There was a high chance that a certain ability in real life would be brought into the game. For example, if one was a soldier in real life, they would automatically learn basic combat and basic shooting skills. As the saying goes, it's never a burden to have more skills. In the past, in order to compete with the burglary gangs that roamed the streets below, I taught myself how to pickpocket. My goal was to counter the burglary. Yep, even I believed it myself. Thief? I, Han Technician, am a law-abiding man who loves his country. He has never scored less than 80 in his political test in middle school and high school. He is one of the 3 best students in the country every year. He is only 1 step away from joining the Young Pioneers, the Communist Youth League, and our party. He has never even peeped, let alone steal. Chapter 21. Han Shao did not intend to become a rogue. After defecting from the Germinal organization, he would no longer enjoy free resources. The growth of a mechanic was very costly. Many of the equipment, materials, and parts were expensive. Funding and resources were a big problem. Although there was freedom in the wilderness, resources were scarce. Furthermore, he was still too weak. Before he could grow, he would need the protection of a powerful force. If the Germinal organization were to lock onto his position in the wild, they would not hesitate to attack him. They might even throw down a heat-seeking missile array and bombard the entire area. He would not even be able to escape. The Germinal organization did not use this method to deal with him previously because Han Shao was in Star Dragon territory. The missiles would be intercepted, and it would not be worth it to expose the organization's other bases in Star Dragon. Another reason was that their leader did not use any means to deal with him. Han Shao chose to join the Six Nations because, apart from the Germinal organization, only the Six Nations had the advancement knowledge. For the sake of his advancement mission, joining the Six Nations was a must. The most important thing was to find a place to stay in the Western capital. The moment Han Shao decided to come to the Western capital, he had already thought of a goal. It was a hidden storyline. In his previous life, he had only found out about it from other people's information. Now that there were no competitors, Han Shao could get it first. In front of him was a shop with an open door. It looked like an auto repair shop. The shop did not have a name, and the sign was a wrench. It was only to let passers-by know that it was a mechanical repair shop. The shop was hidden in an inconspicuous alley with walls on both sides. The alley was about 200 meters away from the shop. If one did not walk in, they would think that it was a dead end. In my previous life, this opportunity did not belong to me. I can't miss it this time. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. Although the shop did not look impressive, it hid a rare and unique opportunity for a mechanic in the early stages. There was a chess table in front of the shop. 2 white-haired old men sat opposite each other, one tall and one short. The short old man had stubble on his face, and his long hair was wild and free. One look and one would know that he was an artist. The other one was a tall old man. His short gray hair was neatly combed, not a hair out of place. He sat upright like a pine tree, concentrating on the chessboard. The most obvious thing was that his left sleeve was empty. He was a disabled person. The two old men glanced at Han Xiao and continued to play chess. Their expressions were serious, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Han Xiao glanced at the screen and was slightly surprised. Wow, they are playing Go. Black and white entanglement. The game is very intense. The tall old man is playing a big dragon, while the short old man is chasing and intercepting. Both sides are playing Go like antelopes hanging their horns, killing each other. It is very dangerous. He took a closer look. F***ck, it was Gomoku. What a waste of your expressions. Do you want to fix something? A pleasant female voice sounded. A woman came out of the shop in a hurry. Suddenly, Han Zhao's eyes lit up. Her skin was white with a healthy rosy glow. She was about 1.65 meters tall. Her appearance was not stunning, but it was very pleasing to the eye. Her eyebrows were gentle, and her smile was kind. She looked like a big sister next door. She was about 24 or 25 years old, the most beautiful age for a woman. A towel was draped over her slender white neck, and a black hairpin was used to hold her hair up. Her upper body was a simple black elastic vest, and she wore a pair of denim shorts, revealing her straight white legs. Her forehead was glistening with sweat, and she held a wrench in her hand. It seemed that she was working just now. Young perverts look at the face and chest, experienced perverts look at the legs and waist, and experienced perverts look at the temperament. Of course, there was also a group of people who were like teddy bears. They were hungry and did not care about the gender. As the saying goes, a 20-year-old woman is like a cherry, beautiful but not tasty. A 30-year-old woman is like a grape, beautiful but tasty. Han Xiao always thought that a woman in her 20s to 30s was the most beautiful age. As for a 40-year-old woman, she is like a pineapple, tasty but not beautiful. What, you want to ask a 50-year-old woman? Hey, a 50-year-old woman is like a tomato, and you think you are a fruit? Excuse me, are you recruiting apprentices? The woman's eyes suddenly lit up, which made Han Xiao feel a chill. To describe her eyes elegantly, it was like a person who had been hungry for 3 days and saw a table of Manchu Han imperial feast, or a person who had been trekking in the desert for 10 days and saw an oasis. To describe it in layman terms, it was like a puppy seeing poop, or a baby seeing its grandmother. Come in and sit, don't catch a cold. The woman hurriedly pulled Han Zhao's arm and pulled him into the shop, as if she was afraid that he would run away. Looking up at the scorching noon sun, Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and said, "Does catching a cold mean heatstroke in your dialect?" The architectural style of the repair shop was mainly white, yellow, and black. It was divided into 2 floors. The first floor was the workshop. Several load-bearing pillars separated the space and divided it into 3 work areas. There were several lathe workbenches with a complete set of mechanical tools, such as grinding wheels, cutting tools, drills, welding guns, and so on. The workbenches were scratched and looked like they had been there for a long time. There were several multi-story iron frames by the wall, piled with many mechanical parts and metals. It was like a hardware store. Walking inside, there was a black metal hollow staircase leading to the second floor, which was probably the living room. My name is Lu Qian, the owner of this repair shop. You can call me Sister Qian. Lu Qian said generously. Sister Qian. Han Xiao did not care about the name and said, I want to be an apprentice here. I don't know what requirements there are. Tell me about your situation. Lu Qian smiled warmly. Her first impression of Han Xiao was quite good. She quite liked the look in Han Xiao's eyes. His decadent dead fish eyes made him look like a dispirited youth with no fighting spirit. His salary requirements were definitely not high. Han Xiao, 21 years old. I am from another city and know some basic mechanical skills. You can call me Technician Han. Technician Han? Lu Qian felt that this name was weird. From another city? You're not a student of the West Capital Academy? The universal knowledge that Blue Star had obtained included the basic training of supers. The West Capital Academy was the official academy of Star Dragon, and the students who studied there were all geniuses selected from the country. It systematically taught pugilist, mechanic, and esper knowledge. Outstanding graduates could even directly take on important positions in the government. It was the country's talent reserve. However, only 1 in 10,000 people could become a super. Even with a comprehensive training program, the percentage was still very low. I only learned some basic mechanical theory. Han Xiao was a humble, low-key person who remembered the 8 honors and 8 disgraces. What a pity! Lu Qian felt a little regretful. Then, she realized that this was a little disrespectful and hurriedly explained, "Sorry, that's not what I meant. It's fine. I have to check. Although I need an assistant, if your skills are not up to par, I won't hire you." It was reasonable, so Han Xiao naturally did not have any objections. Lu Qian took out a faulty electrical appliance and was about to let Han Xiao fix it. At this time, the short old man who was playing chess at the door suddenly said, "Kid, why are you applying for an apprenticeship?" Lu Qian was puzzled. Grandpa's question was weird. Of course, she was looking for a job. Han Xiao turned around and looked at Lu Qian's grandfather, Old Man Lu, and said, "I just want to find a job." Old Man Lu snorted, pushed the chessboard away, got up, and walked over. "I am the owner of this shop. I will only allow you to stay if you pass my test." The tall old man, who was about to play 5 white chess pieces in a row, said helplessly, "Hey, you're cheating again. I have something to do." Old Man Lu's face was not red. Chapter 22. Star Dragon Strategic Defense Bureau, Division 13 for short. Han Xiaoxin's mind raced. Old Man Lu was the core character of the hidden quest, and also the target of Han Zhao's trip. Meeting the tall old man was a pure coincidence. Han Xiao knew that he could hide his identity from others, but he could not hide it from the tall old man. His original plan was to anonymously deliver the information to the germinal organization, show his goodwill, and then reveal himself when the time was right. However, his plan could not keep up with the changes, and he had to make adjustments. His sudden contact with the higher-ups of Division 13 had put him in a passive position. However, Han Xiao was not depressed. If the situation changed, he would think of a new way to deal with it. Since anonymity was no longer a viable option, he might as well reveal his identity and show his worth. Then, Division 13 would come knocking on his door personally. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Han Xiao and Star Dragon had a potential basis for cooperation. Fortunately, he was already in the city. Division 13 would be wary of destroying the city, so he had to be careful. If his identity was exposed at the sentry post, he would be surrounded by the military and killed. Changing his plan was not necessarily a bad thing. Old Man Gao was a respected figure. As long as he could gain a little bit of trust from him, his plan would be halfway to success. While thinking of a way to strike up a conversation, Han Xiao asked, "What test?" Old Man Lu looked around but could not find a problem. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He pointed at the tall old man's broken arm and said, "You have to make a prosthetic for him. Only then will you pass the test." "What do you mean by me?" Old Man Gao was stunned. However, when he saw Old Man Lu winking at him, he understood that Old Man Lu was trying to make things difficult for Han Xiao. "Grandpa, you're too much. Why are you so harsh? What if you scare him away? You've been drinking and playing chess every day. How long has it been since you took care of the shop? Can't I find an assistant?" Lu Qian was indignant. Old Man Lu ignored his granddaughter and looked straight at Han Xiao, waiting for his answer. Han Xiao had a strange look on his face. He emphasized, "Are you sure you want me to make a prosthetic that this old man is satisfied with?" If you can't accept it, then leave. I accept. Han Shao agreed with a smile. The bionic prosthetic limb, blueprints that he had obtained before were still gathering dust in the interface. Old Man Lu's request was a perfect match for him, and he could also build a relationship with Old Man Gao. He wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, but he had a feeling that his bloodline had been a little European lately. He had a feeling that something was watching him these days. You only have 3 hours. I don't have the time to wait for you for a day or two. Old Man Lu snorted. Grandfather. Lu Qian was furious. She wanted to make a prosthetic limb, but first she had to measure the size of the tall old man's arm, then draw a blueprint, and finally make the finished product. Just the drawing alone would take a few hours. Even if the lathe could simplify the manufacturing process, it would still take at least 2 hours. This meant that Han Shao didn't have any time to think. Moreover, the final product had to be approved by the old man. This was simply too difficult. Even designers weren't treated this badly. However, Old Man Lu was the head of the family, and Lu Qian's protests were useless. Han Shao didn't have much of a reaction. He took out a measuring tape and asked, "Can I?" The tall old man generously took off his jacket and gestured that he could measure the arm as he pleased. While Han Shao was measuring, the tall old man was also observing Han Shao. Despite being made difficult by Old Man Lu, Han Shao didn't seem unhappy at all. Instead, he seemed to be very confident. I just don't know why the Germinal organization put a bounty on him. As soon as the tall old man saw Han Shao, he knew who he was. The Germinal organization's bounty had caused a huge uproar in the underground world. Almost every intelligence agency had memorized Zero's appearance. The tall old man was in charge of such matters, so he naturally knew. Seeing Han Shao with a bounty on his head swaggering into the city, the tall old man knew that there was a corrupt officer stationed at the outpost. He really had to find a chance to clean up the internal ranks. What was Han Zhao's purpose in coming to the western capital? Was he a threat? These were all questions that the tall old man was concerned about. At present, Han Zhao's behavior seemed normal, so the tall old man continued to observe. Old Man Lu was different from him. Old Man Lu had walked the line between life and death when he was young, so he was very experienced. He could tell that Han Shao was tainted with a murderous aura, so he deliberately made things difficult for him. He didn't want Han Shao to stay in the shop for fear of attracting trouble. However, Old Man Lu hadn't been involved in the underground world for a long time, so he didn't know that Han Shao was the Germinal organization's bounty target. Old Man Lu's requirements are really harsh. He put the choice in my hands, so he wants me to help him. The tall old man and Old Man Lu glanced at each other. Han Shao finished measuring quickly. Lu Qian was not happy with her grandfather's behavior, so she enthusiastically helped him. Come, tell us your idea. We can draw the blueprint together. It'll save us a lot of time. Unexpectedly, Han Shao declined her help and smiled. There's no need to draw, I already have a complete idea. Lu Qian's eyes widened in disbelief. It's only been 2 minutes, and you already have an idea? Altair must have been blown to the heavens by you. Old Man Lu sneered. Even a mechanical expert like him couldn't come up with a complete blueprint in 2 minutes, so how could this kid do it? Bullsh *T. Han Shao didn't explain further. He quickly wrote down the list of materials and equipment that he needed. Lu Qian was the shop manager, so she could find the materials much faster than him. Lu Qian quickly prepared all the materials. She was very dissatisfied with Old Man Lu's behavior, so she tried her best to help Han Shao. However, she didn't have much hope. Lu Qian didn't believe that Han Shao could complete such a strict requirement. Han Shao picked out the materials and started to work. Raw materials of various shapes and sizes gradually became what Han Shao wanted them to look like under the workmanship of the stamper, cutting wheels, and other equipment. The main material he used was a commonly used aluminum alloy. It was light, strong, and easy to shape. Some of the rivets, screws, and chains were ready, which saved him a lot of time. Basic machinery affinity gave Han Shao an extraordinary perception of metal components. When he touched the metal, he could vaguely feel the impatience of the material that was about to be polished. This feeling was fleeting, as if it was just an illusion. Machinery affinity was the core ability of the mechanic class. It affected all aspects of a mechanic's use of equipment and manufacturing. Basic machinery affinity increased the quality and manufacturing speed of machinery by 1% every level. The best bionic prosthetics could collect electrical signals. The wearer only needed to think, and the electrical signals from the brain would be able to control the arm. It was no different from a real arm. Dong Bing's metal arm was an enhanced version of this, but it required surgery to establish a nerve connection with the body. It required the basic electromagnetic theory and nerve connection of the mechanic class. If this technology was improved further, it would become the technology of prosthetic. It could even replace the limbs other than the brain with machinery, turning them into mechanical soldiers. This method was equivalent to walking on the path of mechanical life. A mechanical body would not be able to produce energy, so they could only continuously search for stronger machinery to upgrade their own modules and strengthen themselves with external forces. The only advantage was that their lifespan was extremely long, and they did not have to worry about hunger or thirst. However, a mind that had lost its senses would be easily influenced by the whispers of the soul in the universe, and it would be subtly brainwashed by certain organizations or powerful beings, losing its sense of self. Unless one programmed their own thoughts and set up a logic loop to become immune to the mind, they would lose their freedom of thought and become an artificial intelligence that followed the program. The advanced civilizations usually used this method to create cannon fodder, and almost no players would choose this development path. The weaker bionic prosthetics could use voice control, but there was also a prerequisite, which was the basic sound branch of the mechanic class. Mechanical technology was closely linked to one another. Using different knowledge to create the same object, there were endless possibilities. Mechanical knowledge was like a big tree, and the higher one went, the more branches there would be. Han Shao took a step back and moved the principle of the lightweight mechanical arm to the bionic prosthetic. With mechanical power as the core, he weakened the power and used batteries as the energy source to prevent it from polluting the environment like the lightweight mechanical arm. The transmission of force was completed by the traction cables between the bones of the prosthetic. They acted like tendons, following the movements of the wearer's broken limb to complete the coordination. Chapter 23. As the parts were quickly polished by various equipment, assembled and welded together, everyone could see that this was the prototype of a prosthetic limb. What was even more surprising was that Han Shao did not create any extra parts from the beginning to the end. He did not waste any time, which proved that he really came up with a draft within 2 minutes. "Oh my God, is he really going to make it?" Old Man Lu murmured. Lu Qian glared at him. Grandpa was up to no good. Noticing everyone's surprise, Han Shao almost laughed out loud. The blueprints were ready-made. Even if he wanted to lose, it would be a piece of cake. "You have created bionic prosthetic left arm, mechanical type, and gained 2000 EXP. It took Han Shao 2 hours and 33 minutes to create a metallic prosthetic skeleton. Everyone in the room was an expert. The shape of the prosthetic skeleton was very suitable for human dynamic. It was powered by sophisticated parts, chains, and a large battery. It looked brand new. Everyone was shocked. It was really done. Lu Qian covered her mouth as her eyes flashed with disbelief. A thought surfaced in her mind. What a treasure! As long as you cover the skeleton with a layer of silicone skin, it will look real, Han Shao explained. Stop talking nonsense. Just try it. Old Man Lu swallowed his saliva. Although Han Shao had indeed surprised him, the initiative was still in the hands of his old friend. He was confident that he could chase Han Shao away. The tall old man had no choice but to pick up the artificial limb and take a look at it. He immediately fell in love with it. As soon as he connected the broken limb, he realized that it was very soft to the touch. It was not like other artificial limbs that were rubbing against his skin like a sponge, but it was very tight. The tall old man did not want to wear artificial limbs in the past because they hindered his movement. However, the artificial limb that Han Shao made did not have this limitation at all. It even gave him the illusion that his arm was still there when he moved it. With the support of the cable, he could use the artificial limb to perform simple arm movements without any effort. Perfect. That was the only word that could express how Old Man Gao felt at the moment. What do you think? Will this work? Old Man Lu calmly drank his wine. Everything was under his control. It was time for him to show off his skills. Lu Qian looked at the tall old man nervously. She was afraid that he would say no. The tall old man was in a dilemma. On one hand, it was a friend's request, and on the other hand, it was his personal feelings. Which was more important? There was no need to consider this question at all. This thing is not bad. I'm very satisfied. Old Man Lu spat out a mouthful of wine. He choked and coughed as he glared at Manager Gao. What happened to being teammates? You're not playing by the rules. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Han Shao was not surprised at all. The tall old man nodded. I'll remember this favor. Old Man Lu was stunned. Weren't these materials from my family? If you want to talk about favors, it should be my favor. Have you asked me for permission to present you with borrowed flowers? Does that mean I can stay? Han Shao smiled faintly. Old Man Lu's face alternated between green and red. He could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. He turned around and went upstairs. Out of sight, out of mind, and out of mind, he left behind an indignant sentence. Humph, if you want to stay, then stay. I'll see how long you can stay. Lu Qian was excited. She waved her little fist in the air. The tall old man smiled at Han Shao, waved his hand, and left. He walked out of the alley and got into a black bulletproof car that had been waiting for him for a long time. The driver respectfully handed over an encrypted phone. The tall old man dialed a number. His aura changed completely. He was a completely different person from the calm old man from before. He said in a deep voice, "The Germinal organization has placed a bounty on Zero's head. His coordinates are. Tell the intelligence department to keep a close eye on him. I've had brief contact with the target. I suggest you test him gently. Unless absolutely necessary, do not use force." Traitors of the Germinal organization had always been highly sought after by the Six Nations in order to obtain information about the organization. Unfortunately, the traitors in the past were all small fries, and Han Shao was the only traitor that the Germinal organization had put a bounty on. Perhaps Han Shao held some very important information. Therefore, the tall old man decided to test him carefully. Han Shao retracted his gaze. His performance should have made the tall old man feel that he was not a threat. It was a good foundation for them to interact. There were 3 benefits to coming to the repair shop. First, Old Man Lu had a complete collection of mechanic class knowledge, which saved him the time of searching for class knowledge. Second, the repair shop could be used as a hiding place to avoid being hunted down by the Germinal organization. The Germinal organization had spies in all of the Six Nations, but this repair shop was one of the few locations that the Germinal organization did not know. Even if the enemy really chased after them, even if the sky fell, there would be someone tall to hold it up. Conservatively speaking, Old Man Lu's combat strength was enough to beat up the current Gila. Although Old Man Lu looked like a sloppy old thug, in reality, he was hiding a strong combat strength. He was one of the few Grade D supers on planet Aquamarine. In the novice planets of version 1.0, the strongest person was at most grade C, which was enough to be considered a tyrant. Even in the galaxy, he could be considered a backbone. There was a famous theory behind the mechanic class that said, if the endurance of a normal person is the limit of a machine, then more than 90% of inventions will be limited. Only a strong individual can use stronger machines. As they grew, the restrictions on the use of machines became stricter. Some of the stronger machines could only be used by mechanics, and the other 4 classes could not use them. The mechanic class did not always fight with huge guns and huge cannons while wearing mechanical suit. High-level mechanics used different machines as the core of their battle tactics, and they could create many different battle modes, such as assault, control, assassination, defense, long range, and so on. There were many possibilities for robot armies, launchers with firepower coverage, mechanical suit warriors, mechanical pugilists with high-tech cold weapons in close combat, virtual illusions, fortress deployment, and even modifying themselves into mechanical bodies. There were many possibilities. In the official information given by Galaxy, the introduction of mechanics was as follows. Proficient in using mechanical weapons in battle, with the ability to assemble at high speed, excellent all-rounder. The most important term was high-speed assembly. After learning high-density material compression technology and elementary spatial technology, mechanics could fold huge weapons into metal pieces the size of a finger and carry them around with them. When triggered in battle, they could instantly expand and return to their original state. Energy was the energy reservoir of the Esper class, the attack power of the pugilist class, the magic source of the mage class, and the psychic energy reactor of the psychic class. The energy of the mechanic class was, of course, not just for decoration. When one's energy reached a certain level, it could replace the use of hands, lathes, and equipment, creating new machines from scratch at high speed in battle. As long as there was not a lack of raw materials, a mechanic's weapons would be endless. Of course, the prerequisite was to learn instant disassembly and assembly, and some other class knowledge. Because the inventory of the players was real weight, only the mechanic class, the mage class, and the extremely rare Space Esper class could achieve the effect of a space bag. The third benefit was the most important. The repair shop was related to a hidden storyline, and they could obtain a few early blueprints of the mechanic class. Old Man Lou would leave the repair shop in the future and leave behind a password-protected box containing blueprints that he had studied for many years. He asked Lu Qian to pass it to her father, Lu Qing. Lu Qing was a rogue warlord, and Old Man Lu had always had a bad relationship with his son. In Han Zhao's previous life, a mechanic player had run dozens of complex missions before finally obtaining the password to open the box. After that, he had spent a lot of effort to gather the materials. After completing the creation, the rewards were immediate. His combat power soared, and he became the king of the PK field. His record was 38 consecutive wins. Even when 3 players of the same level fought him together, they were still beaten. Those blueprints were the early-stage mechanic class artifacts, and Han Xiao did not even need to do the complex missions. He knew the password from the start. The hidden storyline was a competitive mission. Although only one person could complete it, the other players would also know the password after completing the missions. Later on, someone posted a post on the forums, and that was how Han Xiao learned about it. Old Man Lu left the password-protected box after the open beta, and Han Xiao took advantage of the fact that he was close to Old Man Lu. For the sake of those artifacts, it was worth it. I'll tell you about the treatment of apprentices. The monthly salary is 1,000, and the meals and accommodation are included. There's an empty room on the second floor, and your normal job is to perform mechanical maintenance and complete customer orders. Is that okay? Lu Qian looked at Han Xiao anxiously. She had seen Han Zhao's capabilities and was worried that such a salary would anger him. However, she did not have any extra money. I can accept. Lu Qian was overjoyed and immediately liked him. The second floor was a full living room with a living room, bathroom, kitchen, and a few bedrooms. Lu Qian brought Han Xiao to his bedroom. There was a wooden bed without a mattress, a wardrobe, a bookshelf, and a small workbench. This is your room. Lu Qian handed the key to the room to Han Xiao and enthusiastically helped him to clean the room. 1,000 was not even enough for a month's food. Lu Qian could not be more satisfied with Han Xiao. Where else could she find such good labor at such a low price? This kid is probably stupid. I have to treat him well and not let him run away. Chapter 24. Lu Qian cleaned the room and left. Lying on the bed, Han Xiao closed his eyes comfortably and relaxed his body. Now, all he had to do was wait for Division 13 to come knocking on his door. I'm still not strong enough. Han Xiao was very clear that if he wanted to deal with the germinal organization, he would need to rely on his own strength. Furthermore, if he wanted to impress Division 13, he also needed strength. Currently, there were no opportunities for him to do missions or fight monsters, so he only needed to do technical work. Manufacturing machinery required money, so he had to go out and find some extra income. There were many opportunities in the Western capital, and he still had a long way to go before he could turn them into his own strength. There was a classic song that was sung well, Zhang Guolao, his hooves facing the west, carrying Monk Sha, following the Calabash brothers on the Western Paradise, traveling for tens of thousands of miles. There was still half a year before the open beta. Before that, he had to be prepared. After tidying up the room, Han Xiao returned to the first floor. Lu Qian was working in front of the lathe, repairing a certain household appliance. Her round butt was wrapped in hot pants, revealing a pair of long, white legs. He could not help but take a few more glances. Lu Qian wiped her sweat with a towel and said, "The orders are in the drawer." The repair shop was not very busy, and most of the orders were backlogged. Han Xiao randomly chose an easy one and started working in front of the lathe. He worked until 7 at night, and the shop closed for the day. Lu Qian had changed into a long white dress and casual wear. She had undone her hair, and her long black hair fell over her shoulders. She looked even more warm and gentle, just like an older sister. There were traces of mending on her dress, and it was obvious that she was not very well off. Han Xiao could not help but guess that Lu Qian wore skimpy clothes when she was working because she wanted to save on fabric. Old Man Lu only appeared when it was time for dinner. He had been locked in his room the whole day. Time for dinner. Old Man Lu, with his long hair, did not look like someone who did housework. Lu Qian took care of all the food. Han Xiao picked up a piece of braised pork and stuffed it into his mouth. It was fatty but not greasy, and the aroma overflowed. Delicious, right? Lu Qian smiled. Han Xiao did not have time to answer. His mouth did not stop at all. This is what I call food. What have I been eating for the past 6 months? There's still a lot. Eat slowly. Lu Qian was very happy that her culinary skills were recognized and kept putting food on his plate. After eating for a while, Old Man Lu suddenly asked, "What's your background?" Han Xiao paused in his action of picking up the food. "I'm just an ordinary person. How can you fool me with such a clumsy lie? Brat, tell me the truth." Old Man Lu sneered as he stroked his bald head and combed his long hair. He looked like a hairy egg. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. "What if I don't tell you?" "You don't want to tell me?" Old Man Lu raised his voice and flicked his hair. It was earth-shattering. He displayed the willfulness of a heavy metal band's guitarist, as well as the heroism of a non-stop toast. A large wave of loneliness and sadness drifted toward Han Xiao. What a dangerous motherland! Snow drifts for thousands of miles. Han Xiao's eyes narrowed, and with a quick turn of his body, he jumped 5 meters away and crossed his arms in a blocking stance, waiting for the attack. Old Man Lu squinted his eyes. Good kung fu. Could it be the legendary 4-old black goose ballet footwork? You're knowledgeable. That's all there is to it. I still have a move called 3,000 feet of white dust. Those who touch it will die, and those who touch it will lose their soul. Do you dare to take this move? Old Man Lu twirled his long hair with 2 fingers. It was as if he was holding a weapon. He had the bearing of a great master. There's such a powerful kung fu in this world? Han Zhao's expression changed. My realm is not something you can understand. Old Man Lu snorted. Lu Qian smiled amiably. A black cloud of lightning and thunder condensed behind her. It was like the Dharma form of heaven and earth. She tapped the table with her chopsticks and said indifferently, "Sit down and eat." The two returned to their original seats in the blink of an eye. Their faces were calm as if nothing had happened. The western capital was vast. It was divided into 8 districts and 3 satellite cities, which were all connected by military railways. District 1 was the central area of the city. All the government buildings were located there, and no citizens were allowed to enter. Although the germinal organization was their common enemy, the 6 nations were also in a competitive relationship. No one had absolute allies, and assassinations of the higher-ups of each nation had never stopped. Although on the surface the germinal organization and other supercriminals were blamed for the assassinations, the intelligence agencies of each nation knew that at least 70% of the assassinations were caused by other nations. The intelligence agencies of each country, the germinal organization, rogue warlords, arms traffickers, intelligence traffickers, supervillains, assassins, hackers, and so on formed the underworld of this planet. The Dragon Horn Tower was the core of Stardragon's government. It was where the highest officials worked. In theory, the outer walls of the Dragon Horn Tower could withstand intercontinental missiles. Therefore, the bigwigs of Stardragon did not have to worry about a missile hitting them in the middle of a meeting. Below the Dragon Horn Tower was the headquarters of the Secret Department. Dragon Horn Tower, underground. The elevator went up to an unmarked floor. Stardragon's Strategic Defense Department headquarters. Dozens of huge black screens hung on the wall, and a huge amount of data flashed across them. The sound of typing on keyboards was continuous. Countless intelligence personnel came and went, bustling about like gears in a machine, maintaining the operations of this intelligence agency known as Division 13. Countless pieces of information, big and small, were gathered here to be processed before being sent to the department they were supposed to be sent to. Division 13 was the eyes and ears of Stardragon, the sharp knife hidden in the sleeves. Reporting, Zero's whereabouts have been determined. A quiet secretary wearing glasses knocked on the door of the Minister of Intelligence's office in a hurry. She saw the Minister of Intelligence sitting behind the desk with a serious face, with water stains on the corner of his mouth. He said in a deep voice, "Speak." "Chief, were you slacking off just now?" The secretary narrowed her eyes. "Shut up." The chief glared at her. "Get to the point. Zero is currently hiding in a mechanical repair shop in District 7. The chief put his chair back and pondered for a while before turning around. "The higher-ups want to have a gentle contact. You turned around just now to wipe your drool, right? I really regret giving you a promotion." The secretary pushed her glasses up, and a light flashed through her lenses. "How do we implement this? Since Zero came to the Western capital alone, he is seeking protection. He has already shown his intention to cooperate. Prepare a backup plan. Implement informant protection procedures. Do not let the germinal organization's spies in the Western capital know of his existence. Let the hacker department intercept all information that mentions Zero's whereabouts. Do not let any information leak through the network. At the same time, send someone to secretly check if he is a spy sent by the germinal organization. Do not make any contact before you confirm. Chapter 25. Working in the repair shop was relaxing, so Han Xiao had a lot of extra time to do his own things. Klo Junkyard was the biggest junkyard in Division 7. The junkyard was piled up like a small hill, and all kinds of equipment were used to deal with it. This was the territory of Raccoon, the leader of the Gray Zone in Division 7. As long as there was law and civilization, there would be no way to avoid these kinds of gray people who would form cliques to take advantage of others. They were like shadows under the sun, not to mention in such a chaotic social environment. Although the West Capital was the capital of Star Dragon, there were many spies from other countries and forces lurking in this city. There were also many arms dealers, intelligence dealers, and dark net assassins operating in the dark. These kinds of shady forces were the local tyrant. Although they were quite well known in the West Capital, they weren't really important. Han Xiao wore a mask and walked into the junkyard. He was stopped by a few fierce-looking men. "Kid, this is not a place you should be." A bald, brawny man blocked Han Xiao's path and sized him up with evil intentions. With Han Xiao's thin physique, he was as easy to bully as a sheep in their eyes. "I want to see Raccoon," Han Xiao said calmly. The group of workers laughed as if they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. "We don't have time to play house with you. Go home and find your mother, or we will break your legs." The bald man waved the wrench in his hand and threatened. "So Raccoon let a small fry like you speak for him? What did you say?" The bald man was furious and grabbed Han Xiao's collar. Han Xiao stared at him and didn't say a word. He put his hand on the bald man's wrist and squeezed it gently. The bald man felt a sharp pain in his wrist and subconsciously let go of his hand. He looked at his wrist and was shocked to find that there were a few purple finger marks on it. "Friend, where are you from?" The bald man's face changed and became alert. At this time, the bald man suddenly tilted his head and listened to the mini earpiece hidden in his ear. He put away the hostility on his face and stepped aside. "The boss wants to see you." He followed Wu Ku to a rest stop inside the junkyard. A thin man was sitting on the sofa with one leg crossed over the other. He was holding a glass of red wine with 2 fingers. Just by looking at his appearance, it was hard to imagine that he was Raccoon, the boss of Division 7. Raccoon said casually, "I heard that you want to see me. What's your name?" "Technician Han." Han Xiao said casually. Raccoon sneered. "If I think you are wasting my time, you should know what will happen to you." It had been a long time since a stranger had dared to approach him for a collaboration, and it was a young man who was still wet behind the ears. Out of curiosity, he wanted to meet Han Xiao. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows and suddenly reached out his hand. Like a phantom, he swept past the bald man's waist. Before Raccoon could see clearly, there was already a pistol in his hand. The bald man was aghast. He hurriedly touched the back of his waist and found that the hidden gun had been taken away. The lackeys behind Raccoon immediately pulled out their guns and aimed at Han Xiao nervously. "What is the meaning of this?" The Raccoon paused and his heart was beating like a drum. He was very clear about the strength of the bald man. He was his right-hand man and could easily defeat 10 people. However, he could not keep up with the movements of this young man. Where did this person come from? Han Xiao's fingers moved like a Rubik's cube. The gun was like a withered flower. In the blink of an eye, it turned into parts and scattered on the ground. Firearms are the products of big organizations. I can help you save the cost. All I need is a small reward. Raccoon was moved. This kid in front of him knew how to make guns. Firearms were the hard currency of the gray area. The price of firearms in the black market was very expensive. It was a complete ripoff. Knowing how to use a gun and knowing how to make guns were 2 different concepts. Mechanics who knew how to make guns were very popular. A local organization like Raccoon could not attract mechanics who knew how to make guns. Now that a proper mechanic came to him, Raccoon felt that this was an opportunity. "How do you want to cooperate?" I'll make a list later. You provide your own materials and parts. I'll be responsible for the manufacturing and assembly. I'll come here every morning to work for 2 hours. The manual fee is 1,500 per handgun. Also, I want to take away the mechanical trash that I like. Han Xiao had studied the firearms of the Germinal organization thoroughly. He could easily make basic firearms. Raccoon tried to bargain. The materials are all mine. I can only give you 1,000. Han Xiao turned and left without another word. Raccoon panicked. He only wanted to test Han Xiao's bottom line. He did not expect such a big reaction. No, we'll go with your price, he said hurriedly. A handgun in the black market cost 3,000 to 4,000. Han Xiao's manual fee was still within Raccoon's acceptable range. You prepare the lathe and the materials. I'll come over tomorrow. I'll go get some mechanical trash first. Han Xiao knew that a skilled mechanic would have a lot of power in this kind of negotiation. Furthermore, Raccoon did not know his identity and combat ability. Raccoon's eyes darkened. He signaled for the bald man to follow and monitor him. He did not mind letting Han Xiao have a taste of his own medicine. After all, the junkyard was his territory. He had plenty of ways to deal with liars. Han Xiao picked up a lot of usable parts and left the junkyard. He realized that there was a tail following him. He knew what Raccoon was thinking. Raccoon wanted to know his identity and address. After leaving the junkyard, Han Xiao quickly took a few detours to get rid of his stalker. This way, Division 13 will also know my abilities as a mechanic, Han Xiao thought to himself. With Division 13's intelligence network, it would be easy for them to find out that he was working for Raccoon. This was also a way for him to show off his strength. At the same time, he also needed an opportunity to build machinery. Although mechanics were weak in the early stages, they had their pros and cons compared to combat professions. Mechanics were more favored by factions. They could earn contribution points very quickly. As for why he chose Raccoon, there was no other reason other than the fact that it was close enough to save him time. After returning to the mechanic shop, Han Xiao was questioned by Lu Qian. He had already thought of an excuse. He pointed at the big bag of parts he had brought back. I went to the junkyard to get some goods. Junkyard? That place is not safe. Don't go there in the future. Lu Qian did not think too much about it. As long as it did not affect the order, she did not care about Han Xiao's free time. She had a natural fondness for people who did not have high demands for their salary. Han Xiao put down the parts and focused on the interface. He still had a lot of potential points that he had not used yet. It was just enough for him to finish learning the remaining 2 basic knowledges of the armed branch. The maintenance shop had a complete set of basic knowledge for mechanic. There were few places more suitable for the early stages of a mechanic than the maintenance shop. The knowledge books were all from Old Man Lu's private collection. Han Xiao went to ask Old Man Lu for the books, but he was unsurprisingly rejected. I want to read the mechanical knowledge books. Go away. There are no books for you to read. Don't be so stingy. Just treat it as funding an outstanding youth to nurture potential employees. Your skin is thicker than I thought, but it's useless. I just don't want to show it to you. What can you do? This was a good question. What could Han Xiao do? The next day, when Lu Qian handed the stolen books to Han Xiao, Old Man Lu was so angry that he beat his chest and stomped his feet. Why do I have such an ungrateful granddaughter? Lu Qian also had the key to his room, so it was obviously impossible for him to take it back. Old Man Lu was so angry that his teeth were itching. Just you wait. This old man will get his revenge sooner or later and kick you out. Basic Weaponry and Basic Material Encyclopedia were the last 2 basic class knowledges of the armed branch. Han Zhao's level 20 promotion mission was to learn 1 class advancement knowledge. The prerequisite was that he had to learn 5 basic knowledges of the same branch. The player's promotion missions were not fixed. His level 20 promotion mission was the most difficult. On the novice planets, promotion knowledges were very rare. Han Zhao's promotion mission was difficult even for a player's level 40 promotion mission. A normal level 20 player might not even be able to learn all the basic knowledges of a single branch. The unluckiest ones might not even be able to unlock their main class. The repair shop did not have any advanced knowledge, so Han Xiao could only learn the basic knowledge first. However, Han Xiao was already very satisfied. Searching for knowledge books was a headache for all players. Some level 40 and 50 players had not even learned all the basic knowledge, but the repair shop had the complete set of basic knowledge for the mechanic class. This was even worse than being ahead at the starting line. Han Xiao was already standing at the finish line. According to the Treaty of Contact between Universal Civilizations, 7th Revision, between the three universal forces in the Sea of Stars, if an intelligent species is discovered, no one is allowed to interfere with the development of a low-level civilization by means of war, genetic means, pheromones, and other 127 means. Therefore, Blue Star did not obtain advanced technological knowledge from the galactic forces. Promotion knowledges were already the peak, and they were strictly controlled by the large forces and treated as secrets. Consume 1 potential point to learn basic weaponry? Consume 1 potential point to learn basic material encyclopedia? Chapter 26. Basic Weaponry included basic firearms and cold weapons manufacturing knowledge. It reduced the number of times required to master basic firearms blueprints and increased the efficiency of weapon manufacturing. Basic Materials Encyclopedia was the core knowledge of the weaponry branch. The basic attributes of mechanical equipment were determined by the raw materials used. The new generation of raw materials could even revolutionize the technology and improve the overall quality of mechanical equipment. Many synthetic materials were prerequisites for high-level machinery. You have learned 5 basic knowledge of the weaponry branch. You have learned the skills, basic refining, and overload. You have learned the blueprint Robot Ranger. Basic refining allowed him to refine materials and increase the grade of materials. Skills with the word basic or simple were usually the basic core skills of a class. After reaching the advanced level, molecular refining could directly change the properties of materials. Materials were also graded like equipment. The higher the quality, the higher the value. Even materials of the same quality had different grades. For example, a common raw material, iron rock, cost 13 aquamarine per pound, while iron rock, which was refined into iron rock, cost 45 aquamarine per pound. Materials also had their own characteristic. For example, metals that were suitable for energy transmission were not suitable for making armor. Overload, active skill, consumes energy. Increases the power of machinery by 30 to 50% for a short period of time. Greatly reduces durability. For example, the lightweight mechanical arm that Han Xiao had once used. Once overload was used, its attack and defense would increase by 30 to 50%. With his 120 energy points, he could only use it for about 10 seconds. Finally, I've learned an active skill. Han Xiao was excited. There were very few active skills in the early stages of the mechanic class. If only he had one when he was escaping from the germinal organization, he would not have had such a hard time escaping. Robot Ranger was one of the easiest blueprints to obtain in the early stages. It was a low-tech multi-purpose robot that could be equipped with various equipment and machinery. It could be used for combat, exploration, defense, support, and even self-destruct. A high level of versatility meant that there were not many key points. Han Xiao knew that the logistics teams of many guilds used the support type of ranger for exploration and mining. Some of the blueprints for mechanics had already existed, while others had not. The situation was different on every planet. 2 potential points for so many skills. What a bargain! Old Man Lu walked over and asked curiously, "You've been so excited since the beginning. What are you doing?" Han Xiao glanced at Old Man Lu and said, "Don't you think it's weird for you to be strolling around here? Disharmony? Why?" Old Man Lu lowered his head and looked at his beach shorts. He shook the bottle of wine in his hand and burped. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it at all. Lu Qian put down the welding torch in her hand. Her face was flushed with sweat from the heat wave. She rolled her eyes through her protective glasses and said in a stiff tone, "It's working hours. Irrelevant people, please leave as far as possible." Stinky girl. Old Man Lu mumbled to himself as he downed a mouthful of wine. Then, he leisurely went out for a stroll. "Boss, do we fix things here?" As soon as Old Man Lu left, a middle-aged man came in. Han Xiao looked over and found that the middle-aged man was also looking at him. When their eyes met, the middle-aged man looked away. Han Xiao was slightly startled. He immediately lowered his gaze and noticed that the middle-aged man's footsteps were steady and powerful. He immediately understood something, but his expression did not change. There was an 80% chance that this person was an intelligence agent from Division 13 sent to test him. Lu Qian walked up to him with a polite smile on her face. "Hello, may I ask what you want to fix?" "My car broke down. It's at the intersection." The middle-aged man looked past Lu Qian and observed Han Xiao. "Okay, no problem." Lu Qian was about to leave with her toolbox when the middle-aged man suddenly pointed at Han Xiao and said, "I want that little brother to help me fix my car." Lu Qian was stunned and a little depressed. "Do I look bad? You're discriminating against women." "I'll do it." Han Xiao took the toolbox from Lu Qian, who was full of resentment. The two walked out of the alley and saw an old car parked at the side of the road. "This is the car." Han Xiao opened the hood of the car, took a look, and took out the repair tools from the toolbox to start the repair. The middle-aged man leaned against the car and pretended to be looking for a topic. "Young man, you're not that old, right?" "I'm 30. 30? Do you think I'm blind?" The middle-aged man almost choked. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Little brother, how should I address you?" Han Xiao didn't even raise his head. "Before you ask for someone's name, you have to show your sincerity." The middle-aged man had to say, "My name is Feng Jun, good name." Han Xiao's tone was calm. There was no hint of praise. Feng Jun was annoyed. Why did he sound like he was praising Lai Fu or Wang Kai? Besides, what was so good about his name? "But you misunderstood me." Han Xiao rolled his eyes. "I just want a cigarette." Feng Jun's face was very stiff. He lit a cigarette for Han Xiao. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and buried his head in repairing the car. "You can call me Han Xiao." Feng Jun secretly remembered it and continued to probe. "Han Xiao, you're not from West City, right? Where are you from? It's fixed." Feng Jun's prepared words were swallowed in his stomach. His expression was constipated. "What the hell? My probing has only just begun. Do you have to be so good with your skills?" Han Xiao stretched out his hand with a blank face. "The hydraulic pipe is broken. I'll give you 60. Pay up." "Of course I know it's the hydraulic pipe. I did it myself." Feng Jun took out his wallet and took out the money as slowly as possible. It was as if his wallet was a bottomless pit. He wanted to delay and ask a few more questions. "Your skills are really good. Where did you learn it?" "Self-taught." "Oh, that's amazing. Where are you from?" "Country bumpkin." Han Xiao saw Feng Jun taking out the money for a long time and raised his eyebrows. "Are you reminding me to give you a discount?" Feng Jun coughed and finally took out the money and handed it to Han Xiao. What else could he do? He couldn't just not pay. He didn't know if the organization would reimburse him. Han Xiao laughed. "This is the first time I've seen such an unfathomable wallet. I thought you would take half an hour. Feng Jun dared to swear to God that if he didn't have to complete the mission, he would lose if he stayed one more second. Han Xiao whistled, picked up the toolbox, and walked back the way he came. Feng Jun made a phone call with a depressed face. Preliminary observation result. The target is a mechanic, unable to estimate the danger level for the time being. The conversation took 4 minutes and 38 seconds. We only know that the target calls himself Han Xiao. It is recommended to further probe and investigate. Do not have any conflicts with him. Analysis of the target's personality? Very bad. Chapter 27. The next 10 days were peaceful, and Han Xiao maintained his routine. He went to Crow's junkyard in the morning to make guns for the raccoon. Every day he would be paid, and every day he would be credited to his account. He would also find a lot of usable mechanical parts at the junkyard and use them to make Ranger Robot. Han Xiao would hide the completed parts in his room and weld them together when he was done. The rest of the time, he would stay in the repair shop to deal with orders. The intelligence agency had not given up on probing him, and every day, different intelligence agents would come in 2 or 3 batches. Lu Qian thought that her business was finally improving, and she was so happy that she would cook 5 dishes and a soup to reward Han Xiao every day. Sometimes, when Han Xiao walked past her, he would hear Lu Qian mumbling words like expansion and chain, which scared him so much that he would break out in cold sweat. He felt like he had given her an illusion. Sometimes, Old Man Lu would walk around Han Xiao, trying to figure out his origin from his assembling skills, but it was all in vain. Han Xiao was completely self-taught, and his skills were untraceable. Old Man Gao often came to compete with Old Man Lu in chess. To be honest, Han Xiao did not see the point of competing with Gamoku at all. He would often chat with Han Xiao, and Han Xiao was happy to do so. Slowly, Old Man Gao's impression of him improved. In the technical work of the mechanic class, manufacturing was the most rewarding, followed by strengthening, then repairing, and finally assembling. Since he did not have the opportunity to obtain any advanced knowledge, Han Xiao used the experience to level up the 3 skills that were closest to the max level: Basic Machinery Affinity LV-3, Basic Combat LV-8, and Basic Shooting LV-6 to gain more potential points. Coincidentally, the requirement for Mechanic Novice was to learn Intermediate Machinery Affinity, and Basic Machinery Affinity had to reach the upper limit of LV-5. Machinery Affinity was the core skill of the mechanic class, and it was the prerequisite for many blueprints and skills. Although his 15 potential points seemed like a lot, when it came to using them, they would be spent faster than water. He had a deep understanding of this. If he had not spent so many potential points in the past, he would not have had to spend tens of millions of anas, the universal currency, to buy the magic civilization's Water of Oblivion. Instead, he would have been emptied by those profiteers and mages. At Crow's junkyard, Han Xiao operated the lathe and assembled a Type 73 Wasp pistol. Raccoon handed a stack of cash to Han Xiao. Han Xiao didn't count it and stuffed it into his pocket. That's all for today. I'm leaving. It's all thanks to you. I don't need any more guns for the time being, but the promise is still valid. You can pick any of the mechanical garbage here. Raccoon put on a fake smile, implying that he wanted to temporarily stop working with Han Xiao. The number of weapons under his hands was saturated, but it was not the time to get rid of the donkey after it had left the millstone. He coveted Han Xiao's gun-making technology and imagined more than once how much profit he would make if he mastered this technology. Raccoon was very cautious. The first time they met, Han Xiao had easily snatched the gun away, so he did not dare to act rashly. In addition, Han Xiao was always able to shake off the stalkers, so Raccoon did not dare to use force. He was very curious about the real face of Han Xiao under the mask. Up to you. Han Xiao knew that the extra money had come to an end. After a round of feigning civility, Han Xiao left the junkyard. After passing through a few streets and shaking off the stalkers as usual, he arrived at a large mechanical market. All kinds of metals and parts were sold here. Many mechanical students from the West Capital Academy also came here to buy. Han Xiao earned a total of 70,000 aquamarine dollars. He bought all the materials for the Ranger robot and also the materials for the lightweight mechanical arm. Money came and went quickly. After moving the materials back to the repair shop, Han Xiao closed the door and started to build the robot. A few days later, all the parts were completed. Han Xiao assembled the Ranger robot in his room. The robot was 1.2 meters tall, and its outer layer was welded with thin armor to protect the gears, precision parts, wires, and energy sources inside. Its upper body was humanoid, and its oval head was retracted into the torso. There was no neck, and a pair of mechanical eyes were equipped with a simple remote control and imaging system. The chip was a regular product, and its computing speed was average. There was a pair of mechanical arms on both sides of the torso, and the elbows and shoulders were bearings that could rotate like a human's arms. The fingers were transformed into gun barrels, and the firing range was 170 degrees in front of the robot. The waist could rotate 90 degrees to the left and right, and the ribs were equipped with magazines. The bottom part of the robot was equipped with caterpillar tires. It was like a small tank. The system prompted him to name the robot. Han Xiao named it the First Generation Ranger. The First Generation Ranger, Caterpillar type, robot quality, gray basic attributes, 800 armor, 18 defense, 58 power level, 23 km per hour max movement speed, 120 energy height, 18 meters weight, 143 pounds control method, remote control, electric signal transmission remote control range, 50 meters energy source, battery battle consumption, 8 energy/min core power output, 36/80 Onerite arm module, small caliber machine gun, attack 35-40, fire rate 4/s, max fire rate 7/s, 10 seconds overload, ammo capacity 30+60 ammo chain, output level 40 left arm module, small caliber machine gun as above. Additional ability, self-destruct, dealing 280 to 430 fire damage within 30 meters. Will be destroyed after use. Additional ability, metal, reduces all damage except armor piercing by 8%. Remarks, don't be fooled by its dumb appearance. It can hit you in the face at critical moments. Ranger was a general name for the models. There were many different types of robots based on their power system, weapon system, and control system. Most mechanical suits, robots, and large machines were named this way. The raw materials would affect the attributes of the product. The first generation Ranger's main materials were steel alloys and AS resin, which were all common materials. If Han Xiao had used higher grade steel and alloys, the first generation Ranger's defense and armor would have been higher. The technologies in a machine were interconnected and influenced each other. Every part contained different technologies. If some parts could not be made by oneself, one could buy normal parts to replace them. As one's knowledge accumulated, the process of making a machine would become more flexible. Even the smallest screw could be made by oneself, and the final product would be stronger with each generation. For example, if one learned more advanced control chip technology or advanced energy sources, they would be able to change the remote control mode and power level of the robot. This was the charm of the mechanic class. Any robot, vehicle, or mechanical suit had a power limit. Installing new modules would increase the power load. The stronger the module, the higher the load. Thus, one could not add more parts without limit. Only by upgrading the energy source technology could one be upgraded. The energy source of the first generation Ranger was ordinary batteries, which had low power. Only after learning the energy branch knowledge could one create their own energy source. After completing the first generation ranger, Han Shao immediately received 24,000 EXP. Manufacturing gave the most EXP, which depended on the manufacturing cycle, the quality of the finished product, and the technology involved. You have built the lightweight mechanical arm left. You have received 2,500 EXP. The new lightweight mechanical arm was still a left-handed equipment. The materials used this time were simpler than the first one, and the quality was one level lower. Lightweight mechanical arm left grade. Gray basic attributes: 28 to 45 attack, 8 to 12 defense, 26 to 26 power level, 205/205 equipment requirement, 23 STR bonus attribute, -4 attack SPD length, 0. 51 elbow plus forearm plus palm weight, 13. 5 LB bonus effect. +6 STR judgment. His strongest ability now was close combat, and the lightweight mechanical arm was the most suitable weapon for him. The mechanic class learned martial arts, and it was called the mechanic martial style. Han Shao did not plan to maintain this style forever. After all, the advantage of the mechanic style was long-range attack. However, the mechanic martial style was one of the styles with the highest combat power in the early stages of the mechanic class, so it could be used as a transition. Han Shao hid the mechanical arm in his room and returned to the first floor. A client was talking to Lu Qian, and he glanced at Han Shao from time to time. This person was also an intelligence agent. In the past few days, all the intelligence agents pretending to be clients had been rejected by Han Shao, so they changed their strategy and asked Lu Qian for information on Han Shao. After sending the client away, Lu Qian had a strange expression on her face. "Why are there so many people asking me about you?" "Because I'm popular. But they're all men." Han Zhao's expression froze. "You've misunderstood. Don't worry, I won't discriminate against you." Lu Qian chuckled. No matter how he looked at it, Han Shao felt that this smile was very strange. "You've definitely misunderstood." Suddenly, Han Zhao's heart skipped a beat. The system had a new notification. "You have triggered the Grade E mission O Pursuit. Accept/decline?" Han Shao was slightly stunned. "How did I trigger this mission?" "Accept." Mission tip: some people have already set their eyes on your high bounty. In a place where you can't see, they are ready to make a move with hostility. On the other hand, some organizations are also waiting for your performance. What do you choose to do? Mission requirements: successfully escape the pursuit. Reward: 10,000 EXP. Special reward: 1 skill upgrade card, basic. It was obvious that some people had their eyes on his bounty. Han Shao rolled his eyes at the "some organizations" in the mission hint. He did not need to guess to know that it was Division 13. Putting the two together, Han Shao had a new guess. Perhaps Division 13 had deliberately leaked information about him to one of the pursuers to test his combat ability. If that was really the case, this group of people definitely had limited destructive power and were easy to control. Division 13 would not tolerate large-scale destruction in the nation's capital, so they would not easily leak information about him. The reward for a Grade E mission was nothing special, but the special reward made Han Shao slightly more interested. The skill upgrade card could immediately increase the level of a skill by 1 level, which was very useful to him. The special reward corresponded to the hidden requirement of the mission. The clues were all hidden in the mission hint. Han Shao believed that the hidden requirement of this mission was to kill all the pursuers. The enemy could appear at any time. It's best not to stay in the shop, Han Shao thought. Since the pursuers were not strong, he did not want to rely on Old Man Lu's strength. After thinking for a while, a suitable battlefield popped up in his mind. Chapter 28. The junkyard was the raccoon's territory. If he could face the pursuers there, He might be able to solve the problem of the raccoon. Han Xiao put down his work and called out to Lu Qian. When she turned around, he said, "I want to take a day off." "Sure." Lu Qian blinked and suddenly asked, "Are you okay?" Han Xiao was stunned. "Why do you ask?" Lu Qian's mind was sharp. Han Xiao was usually lazy and unmotivated, and his pair of dead fish eyes looked as if he was always in a daze. However, the sudden change in his temperament just now was caught by Lu Qian. Lu Qian could not describe what she felt at that moment. It was as if the feeling that Han Xiao gave her suddenly became somewhat dangerous. "If there are any difficulties, I'll help you," Lu Qian said seriously. Han Xiao stared at Lu Qian's bright eyes for a long time. Lu Qian felt a little uncomfortable under his stare. She turned her face away and ran her fingers through her hair. "It's not polite to keep staring at me like that," she said jokingly. Han Xiao retracted his gaze and said, "I'm not coming back for dinner tonight." Lu Qian was a little disappointed. "I wanted to let you try my new dish, stewed pork ribs with pepper and pineapple with seaweed and coriander." Han Xiao shuddered. F***ck, what kind of dark cuisine is that? Han Xiao returned to his room and found a backpack to store the mechanical arm. He wrapped the Ranger in a dust-proof cloth and placed it on a trolley. He then headed to the junkyard. "Boss, is that kid the target?" A man wearing sunglasses quietly followed Han Xiao from behind. Every time Han Xiao turned around, he was able to use the surroundings, crowds, public phone booths, and news stands to hide himself. He was obviously professionally trained. He wore a mini earpiece and communicated with his accomplice in an old car 2 streets away. There were 5 masked men in the car. They were the pursuers who had targeted Han Xiao. They were mercenaries and bounty hunters. Their codename was Hornet Sting Squad. They had completed several missions and had a good reputation on the dark web. They had accidentally discovered Han Xiao's whereabouts. The Stinger B Squad realized that this was a great opportunity for them to take all the benefits for themselves. Money was secondary. If they could earn the recognition of the Germinal organization, they would have found themselves a powerful backer. "That kid is worth $1 million? He looks like an ordinary person. There is no difficulty at all." The second in command of the team, the long-haired guy, curled his lips. His tone was 30% skeptical and 70% contemptuous. Captain Kelly was inspecting the guns. Hearing this, he said in a deep voice, "This is Stardragon's capital. We must act quickly and retreat immediately after killing the target." The target has set off. A black jeep without a license plate followed Han Xiao from afar. A Division 13 field team sat in the jeep. Captain Li Hui was the person in charge of this operation, and Feng Jun was the operation consultant. 8 field personnel were wearing full combat uniforms and were equipped with tranquilizers. Just as Han Xiao had expected, the Bee Stinger Squad was indeed Division 13's last attempt at testing the waters with the help of others. The mission of this group of agents was to secretly observe Han Xiao's performance and, when necessary, intervene to eliminate the mercenaries and invite Han Xiao to the Bureau as a guest. The Bee Stinger Squad was a carefully selected chess piece with limited destructive power. Once they were used up, Division 13 would deal with the rest. Feng Jun changed the image and said, "Han Xiao's route is to the Crow Junkyard in District 7. The Bee Stinger Squad is following the target. If the battle takes place at the junkyard, the economic losses will be minimized." Division 13 knew all about Raccoon's power and backing. As long as they wanted to, they could make Raccoon disappear from the face of the earth. The National Intelligence Agency had the ability to do so. In the eyes of ordinary people, Raccoon was not someone to be trifled with. However, he was nothing compared to the National Intelligence Agency. The sun was setting in the west, gilding the skyscrapers of the western capital with a layer of gold. At the junkyard in Crow, Raccoon was surprised by Han Xiao's arrival. Usually, Han Xiao would arrive in the morning and leave punctually 2 hours in. What was up with him today? I'm here to look for some materials, Han Xiao said casually. Raccoon did not suspect anything and asked if he wanted to have a meal together. He thought that the taciturn technician Han would not agree, but he did not expect Han Xiao to agree immediately. It was as if he had been waiting for him to ask. Raccoon was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Han Xiao took off his mask, and Raccoon saw his face for the first time. He felt that he looked familiar, but he did not think too much about it. Although the dark net had a bounty on Han Xiao, it was on another level. Normal people did not know much about his background. Raccoon's influence was limited to the small area in District 7 of the Western capital. He rarely logged on the dark net, so he did not have a deep impression of the Germinal organization's bounty. It was like a police warrant. Most people would forget about it as soon as they saw it. Han Xiao wore a mask to keep his identity a secret, but it was no longer necessary. Division 13 would not let his identity be exposed. They would help him get rid of Raccoon. A banquet was set up at the junkyard's rest stop. The two sat down and chatted casually. How was the gun you made last time? Type 73 Wasp. It's a very good gun. Even the military uses it. Other arms dealers charge 6,000 to 7,000 for one gun. You saved me a lot of money. Raccoon's tone was very satisfied. He took out a cigar, cut open the end, lit it, and took a big puff. The quality of the weapons you made is far better than their second-hand goods. Han Xiao did not comment. Although the quality of the products on the production line was guaranteed, they could not take into account the subtle differences of each gun. These differences came from the subtle differences of the materials themselves. If a skilled machinist made a gun by hand, they could adjust and strengthen it to suit the details of each gun. It was more lively than the products on the production line. Experts who used guns often could understand this difference. If one had to describe it, it was like customizing a suit was more exquisite. Raccoon noticed the bulging backpack and trolley that Han Xiao always carried with him. He asked curiously, "What's in there?" "Some parts." Seeing that Han Xiao did not want to say more, Raccoon did not ask. After chatting for a while, the sky outside gradually darkened. The golden afterglow of the sky was gradually occupied by the gradually falling curtain of night. The border between dusk and night was gradually turning orange and blue. The sky was dyed a dim gray by the last ray of sunlight. Suddenly, a subordinate ran in and said, "Boss, someone wants to see you." "No, can't you see that I'm entertaining a distinguished guest?" Raccoon frowned. The subordinate hurriedly whispered a few words in his ear. Raccoon's eyes flashed. He looked at Han Xiao meaningfully and put on a smiling face. "Excuse me." After that, Raccoon got up and left the table. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. "Half an hour ago. Cousin, I came to the West Capital with great difficulty. I'm looking forward to you taking me to eat and drink well. You can't abandon me." Ma Jie followed behind a yellow-haired young man and kept talking. He came to the West Capital to seek shelter from his cousin, hoping to live a good life. However, his cousin did not seem to like him and sent him to work as a janitor. How could Ma Jie be satisfied? He pestered the yellow-haired young man and tried to play the family card. However, he did not dare to go too far. He was worried that his cousin would drive him away, so his attitude was very flattering. The yellow-haired young man was annoyed and scolded. "How many times do I have to tell you? Don't call me cousin outside." Ma Jie smiled apologetically and said, "It's my fault. I'll slap myself." Then, he slapped himself twice. "Look at your cheap face." The yellow-haired young man looked at him with disdain. "I only let you guard the door in my territory because you're my relative. Do you know how many wanderers eat moldy food? How can you be so picky? I'm going to deliver the supplies to a big shot. Don't follow me." "A big shot?" Ma Jie's eyes lit up. He asked shyly, "Who is it?" "The boss of District 7, My immediate superior, Mr. Raccoon. The yellow-haired young man saw the confused look on Ma Jie's face and said proudly, "Apart from District 1, there's a boss in each of the other 7 districts. He's in charge of the drug and sex trade. Think about it, how high is his position?" While talking, the two arrived at the entrance of Klo Junk Station. Ma Jie followed them shamelessly. The yellow-haired young man was about to explode again. Ma Jie did not dare to follow them anymore. He was about to leave when he suddenly saw Han Xiao being escorted by Raccoon. He was stunned. "Isn't that the kid I met when I was smuggling?" One of Raccoon's direct subordinates walked over and frowned. "Don't stay here." The yellow-haired young man put on a submissive smile in the blink of an eye. It was as if he had suddenly become a head shorter. "I'm also Raccoon's subordinate. I'm here to deliver the supplies." Ma Jie pointed at Han Xiao's back and asked, "Who's that guy?" The yellow-haired young man wanted to slap Ma Jie a few times. "Who are you to speak here?" Raccoon's subordinate stopped the yellow-haired young man and answered, "He's an important guest of the boss." "An important guest of Raccoon?" Ma Jie was startled. He immediately felt a surge of jealousy and embarrassment. He had worked so hard to seek refuge with his relatives, but he couldn't even compare to 1% of that Han brat's treatment. How could that unappreciative brat be better off than him? The scene of him bragging came back to him. Ma Jie was embarrassed. "You know Master Han?" Ma Jie said awkwardly, "Not really. I only exchanged a few words with him when we were stowaways." Raccoon's subordinate's eyes lit up. "Come with me. The boss wants to see you." Chapter 29. The two were brought to a room by Raccoon's men. Ma Jie looked nervous and asked, "What do you need me to do?" "It's not a bad thing. That guy is a machinist and knows how to make guns. Our boss has been wanting to kill him for a while now, but he didn't know anything about him, so he didn't do anything rashly." Ma Jie's mind was suddenly filled with excitement. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet Raccoon Boss. Perhaps he would be able to make a meteoric rise in his career and escape his fate of being alone. He glanced at his yellow-haired cousin with an envious expression on his face. There was no need to hesitate to betray Han Xiao. He was not related to him, so why should he care? After waiting for half an hour, Raccoon finally walked in. Ma Jie and Ma Jie hurriedly bowed to him. Ma Jie was in such a hurry that he accidentally knocked over a chair. "You know who Technician Han is?" Civet's expressionless face made Ma Jie even more nervous. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. "His name is Han Xiao. He's a rogue. He snuck in with me. This is his first time in the Western capital. He's not related to anyone." "That's all?" asked Raccoon. Ma Jie thought that Raccoon was not satisfied, so he quickly added, "By the way, he didn't bring anything with him when he entered the Western capital. He was dressed in rags and looked penniless." "Very good." Raccoon turned around and was about to leave. "As long as you're satisfied, boss," said Ma Jie respectfully. Raccoon paused and smiled. "You're not bad. Follow me from now on." Ma Jie's eyes widened. He was overjoyed. "I'm rich." After Raccoon left, Ma Jie hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Ma Jie, I'll need your help in the future." This time, it was Ma Jie's turn to be confident. He glanced at Ma Jie and said, "What did you call me just now?" Cousin." Ma Jie and Ma Jie's roles were reversed. Their expressions were natural and unashamed. Ma Jie's vanity was satisfied. He patted Ma Jie's shoulder and smiled. After thinking for a while, he asked one of Raccoon's men, "Bro, may I ask you something? How will our boss deal with Han Xiao?" "That goes without saying. Of course, we'll capture him and torture him to force him to write down the blueprint of the gun. With the blueprint, we'll be able to train our own gunsmiths and then kill him." "That's good." Ma Jie was relieved. Less than 3 minutes later, Raccoon returned to the table. He glanced at the untouched dishes and said with a fake smile, Han Xiao, you're right? Looks like you know my name now. Han Xiao smelled the impending storm, but his expression did not change. He quietly put his hand into his backpack and felt for the socket of the lightweight mechanical arm. With a click, the arm tightened, and it could be activated at any time. Only then did he feel slightly relieved. Although he came to Crow's junk shop to scam the raccoon, he was used to being careful. There was a lesson to be learned. When he first came into Galaxy, Han Xiao was still a hothead. He treated NPCs like those rigid programs in other games and did whatever he wanted. He had failed miserably more than a dozen times. Even a pig knew to be careful. How exactly did he fail? Han Xiao could tolerate being hunted down by players at his respawn point, but to be hunted down by NPCs for 3 days, stop right there. Even those who talk about dark history need to be pulled out of the room. Raccoon tapped his fingers on the table and said slowly, Hee, I've been trying to guess who you are, but I didn't expect you to be a wanderer who just came to the Western capital not long ago. I have to say you're very cautious. I only found out about you today. So? Raccoon's face turned cold. He changed his attitude faster than flipping a book. Be smart and hand over all the detailed gun manufacturing technique. Knowing that Han Xiao was alone and had no one to rely on, Raccoon finally decided to make his move. He tore off his mask of fake friendliness and revealed the fangs hidden under his smiling face. You don't want to be my friend at all? What kind of friendship do I have with you? We're just making a deal. You're not afraid that I'll kill you? Han Xiao grinned. Raccoon snapped his fingers, and the 4 men beside him took out their pistols and pointed them at Han Xiao. Do you think I didn't make any preparations? How ironic. These guns that are pointed at you now are all made by you. There were a total of 6 armed men. Across the table was Raccoon and 4 of his men. Behind him were 2 people guarding the door. In this narrow room, Han Xiao had limited space to dodge. Han Xiao did not move and said slowly, Even if I hand over the technology, you'll still kill me. Raccoon sneered. That was what he thought. Only a few people had things that were valuable, and he knew the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the root. I hope you can cooperate. At least you can avoid some physical pain. What if I don't cooperate? Some of my men are very good at interrogation. You'll talk sooner or later. Han Xiao suddenly put away the laziness on his face. His sharp eyes made Raccoon tremble. You think I have no way to escape? Raccoon noticed that Han Xiao's left hand kept reaching into the backpack. He shook his head and said, Maybe you have something in the backpack that you can rely on. But if you do anything, my men will shoot. What if I tell you that the backpack is filled with high explosives? The backpack was only opened a crack, so no one could see what was inside. Raccoon sneered. He did not believe this bullsh*t. Ma Jie's appearance was purely an accident. Han Xiao could not have prepared in advance. Who was he kidding? Han Xiao said slowly, I don't know who told you about me, but obviously, that person doesn't know much about me. You can try turning on your computer and entering the dark web to look for the latest bounty. Raccoon frowned. Han Xiao's fearless look made his heart beat faster. Although he had some power in the Western capital, he was just a small local in the entire underground world. He was not qualified to be involved in the dark web, so he did not pay much attention to the dark web and did not know about the Germinal organization's bounty. Raccoon felt that this was Han Xiao's trick to buy time. Furthermore, he was the boss. If he did what someone told him to do, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Han Xiao said calmly, If you don't believe me, do you want to take a gamble? Life is always full of surprises. Explosives can do the most damage in a limited space like this. First, there will be an explosion. The shrapnel will shoot out along with the shockwave and cover every corner. Then, there will be a high-temperature flame that will set the house on fire. Everyone here will be burned. But don't worry, you won't be burned to death, because you have been dismembered by the first round of explosion." Raccoon's men could not help but take a step back. Han Zhao's words scared them. Raccoon shouted, "Enough, I'm not interested in joking with you. Stand up, or I'll get someone to shoot." Han Zhao shrugged and sighed. "Can't we talk about this? I'll give you the map." At this moment, the last rays of the sun sank into the horizon, and night dominated the sky. Before he could finish his sentence, Han Zhao suddenly exploded. His left hand clenched into a fist, and his mechanical arm was like a beast waking up from a deep sleep. His backpack was torn into pieces, and he lifted the table in front of him. The pots and pans in front of him were thrown at Raccoon and the 4 men. "Talk? No way, you don't believe me, do you?" With 4 people in front and 2 behind, Han Zhao made a decision. He flipped the table to block the firepower in front of him, forming a temporary barrier in front of him. Then, he turned around and rushed to the door with his mechanical arm in front of him. He looked ferocious, like a charging cavalry. Clang, clang, clang. The table knocked over the 4 men. Raccoon's forehead was bleeding from the plate. He covered his wound and roared, "Open fire!" At this time, only the 2 men at the door could shoot. Chapter 30. The bullets that came from the front hit the mechanical arm, and its durability dropped rapidly. A stray bullet hit Han Zhao's shoulder and took away 16 HP. Han Zhao felt a slight pain, but he did not care. His endurance was very high, and his muscles were very tough. The bullet was stuck in his flesh, and could not penetrate. A stream of blood stained his clothes. The mechanical arm hammered a minion's chest, and with a dong sound, his chest caved in, and he could not be more dead. Han Zhao grabbed another minion and used him as a meat shield. At this time, the 4 minions behind Raccoon finally stood up and opened fire. All the bullets hit the meat shield, and the minion was instantly turned into a sieve. Han Zhao's back muscles moved, and a huge force burst out, breaking the bolt lock. With a crack, the door flew out and the screws fell to the ground like jumping metal fairies. Han Zhao turned around and ran out. "Chase!" Raccoon roared. Footsteps could be heard everywhere in the junkyard. The dozens of minions patrolling nearby heard the gunshots and rushed over. The Crow junkyard was the Raccoon's base camp. There were enemies everywhere, and it was difficult for Han Zhao to move forward. Han Zhao met a group of minions who came to support him, and at the price of losing another 20 points of durability of his mechanical arm, he swiftly killed the enemy and snatched the pistol. With a long-range attack, Han Zhao immediately got rid of the disadvantage of close combat. With his right hand holding the pistol ready to fire, and his left hand holding the pistol to help him aim, he moved forward in a crouch. It was a standard tactical movement that allowed him to react quickly. Basic shooting, and precision shooting, improved the accuracy of the gun, and it would not trigger more than 2 shots to kill the enemy. Han Zhao's reaction was very fast, and he always made the first move before the minions. A shot to the body to interrupt the enemy's attack, and then he immediately raised the gun slightly and shot the enemy's head. The interval was not more than 0.5 seconds. If there were many people surrounding him, Han Zhao would roll and dodge smoothly, and he would frequently counterattack and kill the enemy. The only thing that limited Han Zhao was bullet. Every time he killed a wave of enemies, he would search the corpses to replenish his ammo. Every time he killed a wave of enemies, he would leave behind a trail of corpses and blood. Raccoon was shocked. A single person had easily killed more than 20 of his minions. However, there were simply too many minions. They swarmed in from all directions and gradually surrounded him. The suppressive fire made it difficult for him to emerge. Han Zhao hid behind the shell of an abandoned car. Dozens of muzzles flashed in the dark, and the dense sound of bullets hitting the bunker made him unable to hear his own breathing. He could only occasionally counterattack. Fortunately, this is my territory. No matter how good he is at fighting, he is only one person. Sooner or later, he will be caught. Raccoon hardened his heart. Once he caught Han Shao, he would make Han Shao regret being born into this world. Just as he was thinking this, something unexpected happened. Rapid gunshots from submachine guns rang out like a violent storm. With a sweeping murderous aura, they cut in from the side of the battlefield and killed a large number of minions as if they were harvesting wheat. Screams of agony rang out one after another. The bee sting squad charged into the battlefield under the cover of the night, each of them armed with a submachine gun. They ran and dodged, advancing and retreating in an orderly manner. Their nimble movements showed their wealth of experience on the battlefield. Raccoon's men couldn't even organize a decent counterattack before they were sent scattering. Where did these mercenaries come from? Raccoon was shocked. He thought these mercenaries were here to kill him. Maybe they were coveting his territory, or maybe it was revenge. Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, what happened next stunned him. The menacing mercenaries suddenly turned around and charged at Han Shao on the other side. They didn't even look at him. These merciless mercenaries were actually targeting Han Shao? Raccoon's eyes widened. As someone who lived in the gray area, he understood one principle. One could tell a person's level from the enemies they made. These mercenaries didn't hesitate to take the risk in the West capital. The reward from their backer must be equivalent to the risk they took. From this, he could tell that Han Shao was definitely not a simple person. Raccoon recalled what Han Shao had said. You can try turning on your computer and entering the dark web to look for the latest bounty. Could it be that Han Shao was telling the truth? What was his background? It's the sound of submachine guns. Han Zhao's ears twitched. The mission target had finally appeared. Using the light from the muzzle, he determined the location of the bee sting squad. 300 meters to the west. 6 people, 6 submachine guns. Han Shao quickly calculated. The enemy's firepower was ferocious. He would definitely be at a disadvantage if he fought them head-on. Luckily, I prepared ahead of time and brought along the ranger. Han Shao secretly rejoiced. He took out a remote control with a screen from his pocket. This was the ranger's remote control device that he had made himself. The chip of the ranger was a common product that he had bought from the market. It was easy to operate. He only needed to enter a simple program to create the remote control device. After turning on the power source, a series of buzzing noises rang out for 2 seconds. The robot's eyes were connected to the remote control device. Everything it saw would be displayed on the screen. At this time, the screen was marked with a out-of-control range. The battle just now had caused Han Shao to exceed the control range of 50 meters. Han Shao stood up decisively and ran back the way he had come in the night. The bee sting squad's submachine guns swept toward him immediately. He moved swiftly. Using the obstacles and large pieces of trash in the junkyard as cover, he weaved through the rain of bullets. Damn it, there's too much cover here. The long-haired guy from the bee sting squad cursed. He skillfully reloaded his gun. He runs faster than a rabbit. Originally, the bee sting squad had planned to assassinate Han Shao. However, Han Shao had already started fighting with Raccoon. On second thought, they might be able to use the scene of a gang fight as cover for their purpose. Thus, they moved out without hesitation. He's already running away. Hurry up and finish him off. Kelly shouted. After the earlier massacre, Raccoon's men had lost their morale. They covered their heads and fled like rats. No one dared to interfere with their mission. Seeing Han Shao running away, the bee sting squad became even more fearless and became more aggressive. Han Shao, who was in the midst of running, suddenly pulled back his head. A strand of hair was cut off by a stray bullet. It fluttered in the wind as he ran. He slid past 2 car shells and hid behind cover. The rest stop was not far away. The remote control in his hand finally showed that he had entered the control range. The screen was connected. Activate. In the messy rest stop, the dust-proof cloth on the trolley suddenly shook. 2 flashes of red light appeared. It was Ranger's eyes. The engine hummed to life and the tracks started moving. Han Xiao controlled Ranger 1 and drove out of the rest stop. At this time, the bee sting squad was not far away from him. Ranger 1's armor might not be able to withstand the concentrated fire of 6 submachine guns. It was too risky to face them head-on. His advantage was the element of surprise. No one would guess that he had robot backup. A surprise attack was the best choice. Han Xiao looked around. His eyes lit up. He had found a suitable place to set up an ambush. Not far away there was an intersection between 2 car shells. It was a blind spot, and it was right in the path of the bee sting squad. Han Xiao controlled Ranger 1 to hide in the intersection. He held his breath and waited for the best opportunity. The environment of the junkyard was very noisy, and the sound of gunfire was endless. The sound of the first-generation Ranger's engine was covered by the noise and almost did not attract any attention. Only Kelly felt that something was wrong. This was the intuition that he had developed after walking between life and death many times. He stopped and said, "I have a bad feeling." "What did you find?" the long-haired man asked. "That's the problem. I didn't find anything. There won't be any accidents. The target has been forced into a dead end. He's dead for sure." The long-haired man raised the flag angrily. The moment he finished speaking, the bee sting squad stepped into Ranger 1's shooting range. At the same time, Han Xiao's eyes lit up. He lightly pressed the button to fire. Tut 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 tut. Ranger 1's fingers spewed out thick flames and smoke. A rain of steel poured out. The approaching shadow of death froze the expressions of all the bee sting squad members. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.